Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1381 of the War News stream. And today we have very big news. France has opened fire today on Russian drones over a nuclear submarine base, and Macron said, "We don't want World War." However, and also the Russian leader, a former Russian commander actually, admits to Ukraine failures, and also Ukraine attacked the Chechen capital in a major strike today in Grozny, and we have very big news. It's good to see you all once again.
And of course, folks, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of news from around the world, as significant developments have emerged, not only from the Republic of France, but also from the southern area of the Red Sea, as well as the Russian Federation, Ukraine, the middle of the Indian subcontinent, and also the Americas over the course of the day. We have an absolutely massive amount of news, and have been able to hear that French forces did open fire at a submarine pen in Brest against Russian drones that were flying directly over the city. I guess you could say, nice Brest. Meanwhile, we have also heard that the Yemeni Houthis have conducted an attack against a cargo vessel within the area of the southern Red Sea, largely leading us to believe that the Yemeni Houthis may be beginning another blockade of the southern Red Sea, and once again forcing a large amount of ships to make the long and arduous journey around the entirety of the continent of Africa. Meanwhile, the Russian Federation and one of its top generals has actually admitted that the Russian Federation had a significant failure in Ukraine and had actually over-anticipated the amount of Ukrainian people that would actually be in favor of a Russian armed invasion and occupation of the country. This also comes as the Ukrainian armed forces have once again reminded the Russians for the 1,381st day in a row that that was certainly not the case, where a lot of Ukrainians were really big fans of the Russians, as another 1,200 Russians have been killed today in very various battles across the front line. Meanwhile, we've also seen significant hits caused inside the Russian Federation from prior Ukrainian drone attacks, with another one, of course, ongoing currently. Meanwhile, inside of the Indian subcontinent, we have also heard that the Republic of India is now getting into some pretty decent connections with the Russian Federation once again, while firefights are now breaking out along the Pakistani-Afghan border. The Islamic Republic of Iran is also going to be speeding up their evacuations of the city of Tehran due to the water situation once again getting even worse now than it was just a week ago, and we've also seen that meanwhile the Iranian armed forces are continuing to prepare for a war with Israel that they are expecting will pop off at any time this month. We've also heard outside of that there has been significant developments in the Americas, as it does appear that the United States is continuing with its escalatory statements, while Nicolas Maduro is once again on TV going, "Imagine all the people!" And we've also heard that the National Defense Strategy has come out today as well, which was quite an interesting read, and one that would require a college-level reading experience to be able to know exactly what was being talked about. It's quite nuanced, but nevertheless, we are going to be making sure to get into each and every single detail of the major news that we have over the day. And of course, folks, like every other day, it is without exception that today is another large day of news. And we are going to be making sure to get through each and every single major piece in detail of every story, all the way from the largest stories first and the smaller ones later on in the night. So moving us on directly into the major news of the night, we are going to be moving on into the Republic of France. The Republic of France is a country within Western Europe. Its geographical location is generally north of Spain and west of Germany. It has a population of approximately 79 million people, if I'm not mistaken. But most importantly, the Republic of France is one of the largest and most important armed forces within the NATO alliance currently. Actually, crazily enough, its army is larger than that of Poland's, which means that France is the second most powerful military state within NATO, just outside of the United States of America. But further on up within the northern part of the country, around the city of Brest, which you can see right here, is a submarine pen that is used by the French Navy. You can actually tell because it's blurred out right here to where you can't see a single bit of it. But this is the French Navy's naval base and submarine pens all in one. This is practically Brest's version of the Vostochny Rayon that's seen in Novorossiysk. Russian drones apparently flew over this port last night. And what is quite interesting, folks, is that unlike other instances, like for say in Belgium or in Germany or in Denmark or Norway or Finland or Sweden or any of the Baltic states or most of the time Poland or Romania, the French apparently have hands that are rated E for every Russian, as they actually opened fire on the drones that were directly over the facility and forced them to flee. According to information that we have from the AFP or the Associated Free Press, the French Navy opened fire on 5 drones flying over the Ilung submarine base in Finistère around 1930, which is in the evening, on December 4th. That was just yesterday. The facility that houses France's nuclear ballistic submarines is based in this area, and it does appear that at the moment, these drones have learned a bit of a lesson and have flown off. We did not hear of any of the drones actually being shot down, at least at the time. We do understand, however, that the action was quite significant. It is the first time that French armed forces have fired on drones seen over facilities within the French Republic at any given point, as we did hear that there was a similar action that was conducted near to the town of Mulhouse in France, where in this rail yard right here, a Russian drone flew directly over a train that was carrying Leclerc main battle tanks through the country from a training field to elsewhere within the country. This is the second such time that we've heard of drone incursions within the Republic of France, and this is now the first time that we've heard of them ever firing on any of these drones. So far, the Russian Federation's government has not made a comment on the incident, as they still are once again continuing to claim, at least publicly, that these drones are not theirs. The French Ministry of Defense, beyond the fact that they stated that they did open fire on these drones, have not made any additional comments beyond the fact that armed action was taken against the drones that violated restricted airspace over the facility just yesterday. And of course, a lot of people are talking about whose drones these were. And of course, everyone, it's a big mystery. It's like putting the tail on a donkey. Where in the world does it belong? And who in the world's drones would these be? Would they be maybe, I don't know, Iran's? Or would they be China's? Or would they be India's? Or maybe they're Russian? I don't know. It seems like they might be Russian. But Matthew, what are people thinking about that? What are you thinking about that as well?
All right. So before we get into the question of whether or not it was Russian drones that intruded the submarine base, a nuclear submarine base, in fact, right here off the coast of France, real quick, Enforcer, I want to make sure you're showing the port there near Brest. If you zoom back into the one you were looking at there, I think actually it's not this one right here that you're looking at. It's actually Il Long, which is down to the south a little bit. If you go down and look, there's another blurred out little island
Oh,
right
right
there.
here, yeah.
I believe this is it right here. The report said that it was Il Long where the submarines were at, where the drones flew over. So I think this is actually it right here instead of Brest.
Oh, Ilong. It is. I got it mistaken, actually. I geolocated it incorrectly. I geolocated it to this French naval facility. It's actually this French naval facility 2 miles to the south. But you are correct, Matthew.
Okay, good deal. That's making sure, by the way, because I saw two people saying, wait a minute, Matt showed a different island. So I was just making sure I had the right one earlier. So it is Il Long, by the way. It's that Long Island. I believe that translates to Long Island in French, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm not a French speaker, so I wouldn't know. But back to the poll question. France opened fire today above Il Long and fired on several large drones over the submarine base right here, which is a crucial part to France's nuclear deterrence. These are nuclear submarines, by the way. So was it Russia? And it looks like 80% said yes, it had to be Russia, while 11% said it's a 50-50 chance of it being a Russian drone, and 5% said it could have been literally anybody. So me personally, I would say that it had to be Russia. I mean, who else could it be? I know at this point some people like to say, well, we don't have concrete evidence to say it was Russia, but I mean, who else was it? Was it Iran sending drones to France? I would say no. Was it Iceland sending drones? I would say no. I mean, there's only one person it could be at this point. I don't think China's sending drones here to France. It's obviously Russia. Also, by the way, Medvedev made a statement directed at France this morning about 10 or 12 hours after this attack occurred, or actually this intrusion, not the attack, but he made a statement referring to sending submarines to the French coast. So I would say Medvedev kind of blew the whistle a little bit by doing that so soon after the intrusion. It's definitely got to be Russia. But Enforcer, what say you?
This is 100% the Russians, without a doubt. It has every single earmark of a Russian drone operation. It flew over a restricted facility. It did conduct operations over the area for some prolonged period of time, and this time it was one of the few times that we've ever seen that a NATO force fired back at these drones, forcing them to back off and retreat, or at least flee to some area where they were no longer able to be shot down. This leads us to believe that it would be the Russians, considering that the Russian Federation is continuing to conduct escalatory actions by every measure possible against the whole of the NATO alliance in Europe. It's highly likely, if not definite certainty, that these drones are, as a matter of fact, Russian. This facility here at Ilong, which is a part of the larger Brest naval facility, I had to make sure to go look at that on my side screen, folks, to make sure that I wasn't getting that incorrect. The Brest naval facility actually includes Long Island, if you want to call it that down here, as well as the French naval base within the city of Brest itself, but apparently that's never denoted on any maps. So if you pull it up, it just sends you here as the marker, and I was like, this must be the Il Long region that they were talking about, and I completely did not see the one that was blurred out further south. But it does confirm that this is the area in which the incident did occur. It's specifically the Triumphant class, which is the French version of a nuclear ballistic missile submarine, were the ones that are at these submarine pens, or at least a limited number of them were, and these submarines make up the, in the most comical name, the force of dissuasion that the French have.
You gotta love that. I read that off earlier today in the video. I was like, force de dissuasion. It's like I guess it literally translates to deterrence force, I guess, or something of that nature, which makes sense. The nuclear submarines here are one prong of the French nuclear deterrence factor, so I guess that's what it translates to.
Man, I gotta say, man, America, we have mutually assured destruction, or the defense, basically the deterrence doctrine is what we could call it in its most simple form. The French have the force of dissuasion. So when they sit there and go, we do not want a world war, however, we are going to send out the dissuasion forces to make sure that there isn't a world war. It's like, I like that. It sounds very polite. They're like, excuse me, we will kill everyone. It's like we just want to remind you of that. So let's not do this. That's not smart. Also, warning shot across the bow with a nuclear weapon. It's like, honestly, you got to respect the French. They keep it very civil and quite office-like. It's not a mutually assured destruction doctrine or a deterrence doctrine. No, that's too harsh. It's a dissuasion doctrine. We're dissuading them from doing anything. I gotta say, really appreciate the French. But nevertheless, it is quite an interesting incursion, and once again, this is the third time, mind you all, in the entirety of the NATO alliance that anyone has fired on a Russian drone. France is now the third country to have ever done that. Poland was the first. And the major drone incursion that captured headlines around the entirety of the world, where something around 30 Russian drones flew into Poland overnight, with around 6 of those being shot down. The Netherlands was then the second country to fire onto Russian drones when they flew over a restricted airbase within the area of the southern region of the country. Then we are now seeing that France is now the third, with them firing on Russian drones that were spotted over the Ulong area of the Brest naval facility in the western part of the country. So now we are seeing that this is starting to become something of a reoccurring theme, at least in recent times, that a larger amount of NATO countries are actually starting to take up arms against these drones and attempt to shoot them down, and I gotta say, good on them. It is an incredibly good thing to see that there are countries within Europe, of course the French would be expected here, that would actually fire upon these drones and attempt to shoot them down. It is once again showing that these governments are at least taking a minimal effort at this point to try and deal with the major airspace violations and national security breaches that these drones are posing at the moment, and hopefully we'll see that multiple other NATO countries that are still being afflicted by Russian drone incursions will start to take similar such actions, and hopefully we'll also see that at some point in the future these drones will be shot down, one after the other. But still, with that in mind, I hope we were able to address that story somewhat well, as a matter of fact. But moving us on out of that story, it's time for us to move on down to another story out of the area of the southern Red Sea. Today we have heard that near to the city of Mocha, and that ain't your coffee, by the way, the Yemeni Houthis have attacked another Russian, well, not another Russian vessel, but another commercial vessel within the area of the southern Red Sea. According to the UK maritime authorities, they've confirmed a vessel came under fire 15 nautical miles west of Yemen after spotting a small, fast-moving boat approaching at close range. It does appear that the Yemeni Houthis are once again starting up their attempts to attack commercial shipping within this area, within this vital shipping lane, which accounts for about 16 to 17% of all global shipping traffic annually, and that they may be trying to conduct another blockade at this point, because these attacks usually do not come as once-offs. They usually are conducted in incredibly large numbers to effectively create a blockade within the area. These sorts of blockading actions by the Yemeni Houthis are quite damaging to Western supply lines and logistics chains, which are usually made off of a precise schedule. What it's called in railroading is PSR, Precision Scheduled Railroading, but precision scheduling exists in every single facet of the logistical and manufacturing and industrial systems of the Western world, meaning that the arrival and departure of raw materials and finished goods has to be made at exact times to keep the assembly line running, and if there is any disturbance in that process, it can start to cause significant delays and stoppages in the entire supply chain. These attacks by the Houthis generally conduct such a result when they are attempted. Considering that 17% of global shipping passes through this area of the Red Sea, this now means that 17%, or at least 15% at a expected maximum or a realistic maximum, will have to start making the long and arduous journey all the way around the Cape of Good Hope at the south of Africa and all the way around Africa to reach their European markets. This adds several thousand miles and multiple days to every single ship's journey to Europe and from Europe, and also from the United States and to the United States as far as the Atlantic is concerned, to try and get goods and raw materials to and from any of these end destinations. This is exactly what the Yemeni Houthis are hoping for by conducting these attacks, in that they will be able to cause significant damage to supply chains and logistics systems that exist here within the West, and cause at least some minimal amount of economic damage as a result of these actions. It is giving us a fairly strong idea that the Islamic Republic of Iran is already trying to position itself once again to prepare for another war. The Yemeni Houthis are not an autonomous terrorist force. They are directly funded and operated through the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps of the Islamic Republic of Iran, much like the Hezbollah forces in Lebanon and Hamas are inside the Gaza Strip. This means that the Islamic Republic of Iran may be trying to take preemptive action against the West and global supply chains to start causing disruptions economically to distract the situation away from Iran and towards one of their proxies, the Houthis, basically using the Houthis as a bullet shield world, while the Islamic Republic of Iran can possibly try and conduct actions against Israel on their own, trying to distribute the amount of firepower that's being given to Iran in half, to where half of the firepower will be flung at the Houthis and another half will be flung at the Iranians themselves directly, especially if a conflict is coming around the corner, which it appears that the Iranian government is highly expecting at this point to be a certainty, especially for some reason within this month of December. Additionally, the Islamic Republic of Iran has also continued to take additional actions in preparing their rocketry forces for future attacks against forces within the area. We could see in these clips right here from Iranian state television them once again firing off a wide variety of missiles and rockets, including anti-ship missiles, among others, which once again, if you do note here, if these are anti-ship missiles, which they appear to be, that now is once again showing that the Islamic Republic of Iran may be trying to message to the greater world that they will attempt another blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, which is as vital a shipping lane as the southern Red Sea is.
Also notice, by the way, they're firing these missiles from, once again, it appears to be civilian trucks that have been converted into missile launchers. At least that's what I'm seeing from my end. So isn't that a war crime to do that?
Technically it is. Camouflaging military equipment as a civilian vehicle without any clear identifiers to indicate that it's been requisitioned for military use is technically a war crime by the Geneva Convention.
Yeah, I thought so. And it looks like they're once again using them here in Iran. Not that they care about the Geneva Convention, but, still just to note it.
Man, honestly, man, I think they're one of the last countries on Earth that cares about the Geneva Convention.
Oh, look, that's a slow missile there. That one got a slow start.
Man, that one's kind of just crawling around, really. You probably hit that thing with a shoe and knocked it off course with how slow it was going.
Someone brought up a good point right here in the chat. Someone said, I thought Iran had a water crisis they were trying to deal with. Yeah, I mean, they do have a water crisis. As you can see, though, Iran's priority is definitely not the water crisis. All that matters to Iran is that the Ayatollah and his goons can survive. That's totally it. They don't care about the water crisis. In fact, if they really cared, they would already be starting the evacuation of Tehran, which they're still not doing even right now.
Yeah, they are certainly not doing that at the moment at all. And we are also seeing that within the area of the Islamic Republic of Iran's capital, apparently Erdogan of the Republic of Turkey is going to be visiting Tehran in the coming weeks to meet with President Pezeshkian and Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei. We do not know what the reason for the state visit is, but it is probably an expansion of Turkey doing Turkey things and trying to make themselves seem incredibly friendly to the Islamic world so that way they can try and start building a minisphere economically within the region. This is very similar to what they've done, presenting themselves in a different light to the Balkans to try and start building out Turkish economic investments and economic ventures within the region to start building up a significant economic base that'll return money to the Republic of Turkey. So we're assuming that this may be an extension of that, but once again, a little bit weird, just to be entirely honest with y'all, that he would go to Iran. Iran isn't exactly a friendly country to anyone, and so it is a little bit odd that he would go there at all. Still, the Islamic Republic of Iran is dealing with a water crisis at this moment, still. And according to officials, they have stated that the Iranian capital is facing a day zero moment, meaning that they will be out of water here very soon, and the water will most likely not return in the near immediate future, when all water supplies run out. And they're saying, according to these officials, that this could actually happen within just days. Not weeks, not months, days. So it's actually happening within the Islamic Republic of Iran's capital, Tehran. It appears that they are going to be out of water, according to officials, possibly even within just days from now. Now, that is quite a crisis, and one that's actually being quite underplayed, at least out in the broader world. And just to be honest with y'all, that's because a lot of people don't really understand how fragile the water supply systems can be, like the ones that the Islamic Republic of Iran is working off of. They have completely depleted the water in the surrounding area, and it's highly likely that the surrounding region may actually never recover from the complete lack of water that exists there now. And even if it does, it most likely will be at a greatly reduced capacity of water supply, even compared to what it was able to do beforehand, back in the 80s and the 90s, when this sort of a drought started to begin within the region. Still, it is quite clear at the moment that while the Islamic Republic of Iran is about to deal with one of the largest humanitarian crises that we've seen of the 21st century so far, they are still going to continue to conduct their warlike actions, not only against the United States, but against the state of Israel, and continue to threaten global shipping as a result of their actions and aims within the general area. Outside of the Islamic Republic of Iran and all of the information going on there, I also have to bring out to a small little update that we have on the situation going on in the Sudanese civil war. As many have been able to hear, and we talked about this last night, and considering that we've had enough people asking about this from time to time recently, I thought we would include just a small little detail on it at the moment. Currently, RSF forces within the area of the Darfur province of Sudan have taken control of the region's capital, which is called the city of Al-Fashir. Al-Fashir is home to about 80 to 90, well, actually, I believe it's around 130,000 people, and according to information that has emerged from satellite photography of the surrounding area of the city of Al-Fashir, the United Nations is largely guesstimating at the moment, or in British MPs are as well, that somewhere up to at least 60,000 people have been killed in Al-Fashir within the last week after the RSF took control, according to satellite photography, and also according to the Telegraph as well. They also state that up to 150,000 residents are still missing, which is practically the entire population of the city of Al-Fashir. Currently, the Sudanese civil war has been going on for about 2.5 years in the background as we've been covering the news here on this channel. The Sudanese civil war actually started, and we attempted to cover it, but considering that a large amount of people didn't really seem to be that interested in the situation, we then pulled the entire news segment altogether and then moved on with our normal news coverage of major topics that generally concern the Western world, at least on a strategic and economic level, far more than the war in Sudan. However, in the midst of us not giving this war a lot of attention or coverage here on the channel, this war has spiraled out of control rapidly. The central government's forces and the RSF are both conducting major military actions throughout the entirety of the country, and also a lot of people are apparently in shock. 60,000 people. You're saying 60,000 dead? That's correct. 60,000 dead within a single week within one city. Just to put it into perspective, the worst statements that had been made, which were made by, I believe it was the... I believe it's the Gazan version of the Red Cross. What did they call it, Matthew? The Red Moon or something like that?
The Red Crescent?
Yeah, the Red Crescent. The Red Crescent states that in Gaza, over the entire time of the year and a half that the Israelis were fighting Hamas, that the Israeli Defense Forces killed, at least by their approximation, which, by the way, this is the worst case approximation of fatalities in the Gaza Strip, somewhere around 70,000 civilians in the Gaza Strip killed in about a year and a half from Israeli airstrikes. And by the way, I just want to put it out there, that's not the number we go with. We don't really know what it is, but that's what the Red Crescent says it is, and they generally have been the ones to go with the highest figure possible in the past. So that's about 70,000 people killed in the Gaza Strip within about a year and a half. Within 1 week of the RSF taking control of the city of Al-Fashir, that same number of people have died in massacres that have been created by the RSF through the city. I unfortunately cannot show y'all any of the satellite photography, as another channel here on YouTube has attempted to cover this story and has actually shown the satellite photography, which isn't incredibly graphic, but it does show corpses strewn across the ground, and that actually got their channel age restricted. So unfortunately, we cannot show it here on our channel, but I can describe to y'all at least a little bit of what you could see if you look at these satellite pictures. Within some areas of Al-Fashir in the middle of the city streets, people were rounded up in small groups in the middle of a road and would be gunned down by machine gun fire in the middle of the street, with their corpses left there to rot in the middle of the street. So in a lot of areas and places on different city streets throughout Al-Fashir, you'll find small little groups of corpses just sitting in the middle of the street where they had been gunned down. Probably the worst instance that's been seen so far that has been confirmed on satellite photography is a massacre that it appears to have occurred within a children's orphanage in Al-Fashir. It is generally understood that the children in the orphanage were actually a part or largely victim of the massacre, as the RSF has stated that even children and newborn infants are a part of the central government's allegiance and loyalty and forces, and for that reason the RSF considers newborn children and infants to be military targets if they are not directly affiliated or loyal to the RSF. We generally understand that at this children's orphanage within the city, several dozen orphans, along with hundreds of other civilians gathered up from the surrounding area, were brought into the courtyard of the orphanage compound and then were gunned down by machine gun fire. We estimate that several hundred people, including the children, were killed within the courtyard of this orphanage with the RSF due to the large amount of corpses seen within this one one area, for the seldom few times that we've seen this, actually building a mass grave directly outside of the wall of the compound and burying all of the victims in mass in that one spot. But that is a fairly sort of a normal story, unfortunately, for what's going on in Al-Fashir currently, and it is quite a horrific sort of an instance, to say the least. And that's not even to mention what's been going on in Al-Fashir since the war started in 2023. In 2023, the RSF practically besieged the city immediately, and has besieged the city up until about a week ago. During that siege, the RSF created several dozen mile-long berms surrounding the city that were so steep they practically served as walls, besieging the city almost in a medieval sense and stopping any civilians from ever attempting an escape from the city in any direction. So a large amount of these people who are being massacred currently within the city have actually been stuck in a besieged city for roughly about 2 years at this point, or more so 2.5. And now that the siege has finally ended and the central government's forces fell to the RSF has killed at least 50% of the city's population in less than a week, with the massacre still ongoing right now. So you can get an idea that the Sudanese civil war is quite a barbaric one, to say the least. To be entirely honest with y'all, it is stooped down to the absolute levels of barbarism that we've never even seen from anyone on the planet so far in a war the entire time that we've been covering news on the channel. We've seen the war in Ukraine and the atrocities and genocides that the Russians have conducted, which is about as bad as this, to be entirely honest. But this, as far as the brutality within such a short amount of time, is honestly taking the cake from just about everything else. So we will be trying to give some updates here and there intermittently on what's going on in Sudan. Unfortunately, folks, Sudan is not a strategically important area of the world for really most everyone. So a lot of these conflicts actually get buried. Like, I'll actually tell y'all something that's even crazier here. This is just the tip of the iceberg for what's going on in Africa right now. Africa is embroiled in an endless amount of slaughters and genocides that happen pretty much across most of Central Africa fairly commonly. Right now, warlords are engaged in pretty pitched battles pretty much on the daily, to the point that they're never even covered in Mali, Niger, and Chad. And there is also a significant amount of massacres going on within northern Nigeria at the moment, due to religious ideological tensions boiling over within the region, with the central government practically out of the reins and not able to control the situation on either end. There are also a huge amount of, I guess you could say, conflicts, battles, or fights that are going on in multiple other countries within the area, including in Liberia. Some of y'all may have watched before the movie Lord of War, which is actually about the arms dealer Victor Bout, who actually sold a decent amount of arms in the Central African region during the 90s and the early 2000s. And you will have heard him in the movie, at least Nicolas Cage in the movie, make the statement that he sold the guns to one group and then they went and genocided an entire camp. But then again, there was about another 11 genocides that day in that one area. And that's basically what's going on throughout this entire region. It is embroiled in endless war. If we tried to cover this, it would take up literally about 6 hours every day to cover every single instance and every single development going on within this area. But quite a horrific story nonetheless, and incredibly unfortunate to hear of what's going on within Sudan. But moving us on out of the Middle East and generally slightly northern African news that's going on today, we are going to be moving on into some other significant news that we have been able to hear outside of Russia. Russia has allowed one of their generals, or at least retired generals, to make a fairly interesting statement today. Well, actually, this was several days ago, but this will be the time we're covering it today. According to this former Russian forces commander Churkin, he has actually admitted on this clip here that was made on a Russian podcast that the Russian Federation actually did not expect at all the kind of resistance that they received inside of Ukraine. According to Russian intelligence provided by the FSB, they actually believe that around 70% of the entire population of the state of Ukraine was in support of a Russian forces armed invasion and would provide practically no resistance, or would collaborate with Russian invading forces to assist them with an invasion of the state of Ukraine. 1,381 days later, this has clearly been proven wrong, as the Ukrainians are still doggedly fighting for every inch of ground inside of their country, and the Russian Federation is still taking wildly high losses. This is something that I gotta say is a little bit interesting for the former commander Churkin to say, considering that Churkin, as far as I understand, was actually involved in the earlier part of the Russian Federation's invasion of Ukraine, And also, this statement is largely showing a great deal of incompetence on the part of the Russian intelligence services, which usually portraying any government agency in the Russian Federation to have a significant degree of incompetence is usually akin to a cardinal sin. It's a little bit crazy they even said this at all, but it also is confirming to everyone out in the Western world that the Russian Federation actually did believe that this war would be easy to win. They truly did believe that in 3 days to a week, they would be able to take over the entirety of Ukraine, and resistance would literally evaporate as soon as Russian forces crossed the border. This also leads us to believe that Putin also had this intelligence as well, and based off of that, he thought that this would be a quite easy sort of a win, and nothing too large to do. Now they're understanding that that's not the case, and with the Russian economy literally collapsing under them day over day, they don't really have a lot of places to turn at this point to try and escape the hell that they created for themselves. And a lot of people are actually talking at this moment about whether or not there are cracks forming within the Russian government, considering that Churkin is a fairly high-up commander within the Russian Federation's armed forces. And for that matter, he's also starting to state things that paint Russia in general in a fairly negative light. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
All right, so a Russian general today apparently has decided to turn into a Windows man instead of a Mac OS man, because I have a feeling that a Windows operating system could be in that man's future, because Putin happens to be a salesperson of Windows. That, of course, Windows and window pane kind of goes together. And I think Putin loves to dish out some window panes from time to time. So a former Russian general, the one you just saw right there in the picture, has admitted that Russia underestimated Ukraine's resolve to defend itself, so are cracks forming in the Russian government at the highest levels. 47% said yes. Top Russians are now dissenting openly, indicating this is much larger than previously thought, while 35% said others probably agree with them, but they're too scared to speak, and 14% said no, it's simply just one guy yapping. So this is obviously a big deal because this guy's taking a huge risk, because pretty much any other person, and I'll be honest with you, I can't really remember a Russian general of any sort actually speaking out like this. He might be one of the first ones to actually take a step this large and this bold in public. So he's probably in some deep trouble with Putin. I'll be quite honest. He's in some deep trouble. So I would say that others probably agree with him, because you'd have to be blind not to agree with him. But they are scared to death to speak because they know what the consequences are going to be like. So I'm with the 35%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I would be with the 35%. I'm sure that others agree, but they are too scared to speak. But we also have to remember that Churkin actually, correction. A lot of people have the Erkin sort of a deal going on in their name, but Churkin is a little bit of a special case. This is one that I want to point out here because I just had to do some looking into his background to see who he is, and this is quite interesting. Churkin has already gone to prison in Russia.
For what?
For bribery charges.
Damn. So they sent him to so he got some bribery. Like, what was was there any details about what it was?
So, well, no, obviously not. But in December 2013, Churkin was removed as the commander of the Russian ground forces by Putin for bribery charges. Subsequently, he was sentenced to 5 years in a labor colony. He was also stripped of his military rank of colonel general and most of his state awards. In December of 2015, his sentence was canceled by a higher court.
Interesting. That's fascinating. So this guy right here probably has a bone to pick with Putin. That's why he's probably taking a step here. He could be a disgruntled former employee, basically. He has a bone to pick with his former boss, and that must be why he's speaking out all of a sudden, because he's taking a big risk, like I said, doing this. So that must explain it. He's got some personal motivations for actually saying it. Of course, he's telling the truth, but, the truth in Russia doesn't get you very far.
Yeah, and something else that's kind of a little interesting about this, folks? Why in the world should we ever negotiate with a country that's having such rife corruption issues? I mean, hell, even their commander of the armed forces all the way back into the early 2010s were being brought up on bribery charges. How in the world can we deal with and negotiate with such a crooked and wicked government as this? I mean, this is truly something crazy right here, folks. Y'all see where I'm kind of getting with that? Y'all know where I'm getting with that. But still, it is quite interesting to note that practically everybody in the Russian military has had corruption charges brought up on them and has also been put in prison. Like, let me go pull up this General Surovikin. Let me go pull him up. Oh boy, let me. Oh yeah, let me see here. Oh buddy. let's see here. I got to go find this because I think I can find this on this guy. Oh, dang, wait a minute, hang on. I must be misremembering this. Because I remember that at some point Surovikin had bribery charges brought upon him and that he had been arrested and put in prison. Am I misremembering that, Matthew? Because there's no mention of it at all in his Wikipedia.
Oh, something happened with Surovikin. Let's see. Let me do a quick check on this because he got removed, I think, for some reason. Let's see here. So Surovikin, let's see here. He disappeared from public eye in 2023. Apparently following the mutiny of Wagner. So that must have been it. He disappeared out of the blue after the Wagner thing happened because I think there was some rumors floating around that maybe he might have turned a blind eye to it or something. So he just kind of went away. I don't think he really got prosecuted.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, there it is, right there. Because he may have been involved with the Wagner coup. So yeah. There. So I mean, that kind of corruption, folks, right there. I mean, that's kind of crazy, right there. Or we could go with General Popov. Let me go get General Popov for all of y'all. Here we are, Ivan Popov. He was dismissed in July of 2023. And what in the world happened to him? He was brought up on fraud charges. And he was actually sentenced. So here we are. So let's see here. There was no comment from the Russian Defense Ministry or law enforcement agencies about the reported arrest, but on July 15th, the military court allowed Popov to serve pretrial detention at home. In April of 2025, this year, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison, and no court has reversed that order. So Popov is in prison right now, and he's going to be there for 5 years. This was the commander of the 6th Combined Arms Army, by the way, folks, who was in charge of the entirety of the southern Zaporizhia front, and Ivan Popov was also the commander during the ill-fated Ukrainian 2023 summer offensive in Zaporizhia, where the Ukrainians were not able to break through the Surovikin line, which he was in charge of under his command. So even this guy was brought up on corruption charges. Like everybody in the Russian military is brought up on corruption charges. How in the world can we deal with such a corrupt government like that? I mean, the corruption, it's right from top to bottom. Putin and his sick cronies, they rob all of the money that we give to Russia in terms of economic investments and incentives from their own people. Snatch it right out of a baby's hand to sit there and get themselves a nice white Lada, or a blue Lada, or a green Lada, or maybe a red Lada. But you get the picture, folks. How the hell can we deal with a corrupt government like this? You just can't, basically. You just can't. That's why we got to cut off all support and conversations with them and treat them like trash. It would make a lot of sense. But anyways,
Corruption is only bad if I'm not involved.
Man, you know what they say, man? The palm that is ungreased is the one that squeaks the loudest, boy. But anyways, moving
Man,
on.
I'll tell you what, in Russia, they got the can of WD-40, and they are greasing palms. They are like slathering palms with WD-40. Like, they are greasing those palms. They can't even grab onto the money. They are greasing palms so hard in Russia. They're so slippery. They just can't get it. I mean, it's just, I tell you what, their hands, it's just, their little hands. They're too greasy.
The hand that is greased is the one that helps turn the wheat or something. I don't know. Anyways, speaking of wheat, oh boy, sit down, everyone. This one's going to get crazy. Russia's running out of money so badly they're about to cause a civil war because they just increased the alcohol tax today.
Oh my God! Wait a minute! Whoa! They raised. What are they trying to do? Start a civil war?
Man, I think they are.
This is bad. This is actually bad.
So, to fund its ongoing war expenditures, excise taxes on alcohol will increase from 8.9% to 31%.
Damn.
That's kind of crazy, folks. Now, I've never heard of the Russians ever going around and, fighting in their own country. But, historically, the times they do is when the alcohol runs dry and they get sober enough to see what's going on. I'm not even kidding. That's historically the case. So I have a feeling, folks, this is probably actually going to cause a lot of big issues here. And also this is a significant increase of the tax from 8.9% to 31%. You're paying a third of the price now for the price of alcohol in Russia in tax alone. So that's going to be quite a thing.
Isn't that dumb? Like, that's really dumb. They're raising the tax on alcohol to fund the war, but alcohol is probably the single one thing that has kept the Russian people docile the entire time because the Russians know they're getting shafted. They're not blind. I mean, when you see your economy going down the tubes, you're not blind to it. But, if you happen to have a little bit of vodka to, sort of like ease away the pain, you can kind of ignore it. But if you can't afford your vodka and you're sober, and all of a sudden you're seeing this with clear vision because the vodka's worn off and you can't buy it anymore, that might cause some big issues.
Man, man, we need to make a Medvedev style tweet about the Russians, man. Be like, as soon as their little grubby hands are not able to touch the devil's liquor, or something like that. Start talking about them in that way. Man, we got to do that because, man, this is good. This, if anything would cause an issue in Russia, I think this is actually going to be the one that would cause a major issue, to be entirely honest with you all here. This is the one.
I would agree with that. I think it will. It might be the one, actually. I just saw right there that Osen Technical was saying, by the way, that it led to a prior Russian Revolution, a similar thing. So it's very possible.
Yeah, it did. It led to the Russian Civil War, where the communists took charge. And then it led to the collapse of the Soviet Union as well, because alcohol started to disappear from the shelves, and a lot of people started to wise up a good bit. So it's actually brought the collapse of Russia twice over before, at least in modern times. So who in the world's not to say that it could come around a third time because of this one? I have a feeling it might actually do that. So a lot of people are actually talking about what this is going to create within Russia. And Matthew, what are people thinking about it? And what are you thinking about it as well?
All right. So, an alcohol tax, a tax on getting intoxicated. That's what Russia's introduced. It's going to start in January. So, that is basically ground zero right there in January. It's a tough time for those Russians. But they're doing this to fund ongoing war expenditures. So, what happens? What is your prediction? 68% said this will force civil unrest, while 16% said nothing will happen, and only 11% said this will force a civil war. So, the folks that were getting intoxicated on the vodka are the ones you have to worry about, to be perfectly honest. Not making a statement in general about folks, but the ones that were getting intoxicated, Putin probably wanted them to stay intoxicated because if they start getting sober, they might start getting angry. It tends to be the way it goes. So I think it will force civil unrest because that is one thing. They don't really care about anything. They don't care about, innocent Ukrainians getting hurt, really. They don't really care about the war going on for years and not really making any progress, but don't take away their damn alcohol. That is something there that is horrible. So I'm with the 68%. I think this is going to cause some protests. They're going to take some risks over this one. But Enforcer, what say you?
I think the Russians are about to risk it all over this one. And I see a lot of people like, really? You'd really think that this would be what tips it off? Oh, yeah, it would. Because you see, in Russia, things don't really work the way you think they do over here. Because in America, folks, people drink like they're fish, but they also don't drink to the point Russians drink. I mean, Russians drink to the point that if they go a day without a drink of alcohol, they might actually die from shock. So it's a fairly different sort of a drinking culture in Russia. But here in America, people don't really drink too much. Mostly kind of like semi-sober. Like, compared to Russia, that is. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So they don't really drink that much. So there's enough people in the country, whether they really know what they're talking about or not, they get involved in politics, but they create their own issues in their own way, and strife as a result. In Russia, it's fairly different. People in Russia truly do drink like it's going out of style, and they've got to do it before it's gone. So they are quite truly alcoholics. Most of them are. A large part of the population is alcoholic. So if you sit there and have a whole bunch of inebriated people that are usually so drunk they really can't think straight, and then you take away their alcohol, so one, they're going into withdrawals, and two, they're also starting to pay a little bit more attention to what's going on around them because they're not absolutely keeled over drunk. This starts to create a lot of angry people because of, one, the withdrawals, and two, they're realizing they're getting shafted, and they've been getting shafted for a while. And before people say, well, that sounds like you're making it up, that's exactly what happened back in the day. I don't know if anyone knows this, but the Russian Revolution was created due to the ongoing First World War, but also because they created a significant excise on liquor sales at that time, and also were considering prohibition, which was kind of a reason why the communists took charge. And then the communists tried to ban alcohol, and this started to create a large amount of angry people in the country that were pretty much just revolting against the system. So when Lenin died, Stalin came in charge, and then he completely brought back alcohol like it was never before seen in Russia, and actually made it state subsidized, so that way it was as cheap as it could possibly be, so that way as many people as possible could get their hands on it. So people from then on in Russia have largely been flat out drunk. The only time that they haven't been is around the time of 1990 to 1991, which is when the Soviet Union's economy was doing so badly that alcohol was not available in the large numbers or amounts that it was in prior years, which also led to a decent amount of civil unrest and then also the collapse of the Soviet Union's government. So it's actually not that unheard of historically, even just in recent times, for a lack of alcohol in Russia or an increase in soberness or sobriety, whichever way you want to put it, will result in significant civil unrest within the country. Because you also have to remember, folks, people in Russia lived under the Soviet system forever until the economy got really bad and the booze started to run out. They lived in the First World War and suffered about 17 million dead in World War I. And then when the booze started to run out, that's when they finally started to have a problem with the whole deal. It's something that's telling us here, folks, that this might be coming around to a big event. The conscription is not that big of an event to Russians because they just get to drink and forget about it. But when you see the conscription going on and you can't drink to forget about it, then that starts to become an issue there. So I would actually have to say this could create some large civil unrest within the country. But with that, folks, I hope that does address that the best we can, hopefully it does, we try our best, although we only have some limited success. And we will be making sure to move our news on over, for a moment, outside of Russia, and back on over into the Americas. This is about time for us to go over the hunt for Captain Crack Sparrow and the brand new National Defense Strategy for 2026, which is an exciting read. But before we get into all of that, folks, I do have to say a massive thanks to everyone who's been watching so far tonight. We've had a peak viewership of 9.7 thousand people. Now, that's a lot of people. A little bit of a smaller night, but we're still happy to have everyone here nonetheless. And I'm sure that a lot of people are out there getting hyped up on their season's greetings, I'm sure. But of course, folks, before we get on into all of this news that's going on over here, I do want to make sure that we get a couple of questions from the chat to give everyone a bit of a halftime before we get on into the rest of it. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so we got some big news coming up, by the way, so don't leave during the question segment. We got something else coming up that's going to be very hilarious and also kind of interesting as well about India. But jumping into our first three Super Chat questions, our first one here goes to Bobby, also known as LC39A, and he puts in a massive $100 support yet again tonight. And thank you once again, Bobby, for once again helping to keep the channel going. And of course, I have to say it, formerly known as LC39A. And he said, hello.
And hello to you, LC39A, and a massive thanks to you for the unbelievable support and helping this channel to keep rolling. I gotta say, it is folks like you with that kind of support, massive, small, and everything in between, that helps this channel to keep rolling every day. And I gotta thank you massively for the support, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to say, oh, hello there, to the entirety of the LSA, and yourself included. So humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have another generous support from Con45, who also threw in a very generous $100 support, just like Bobby. And thank you very much, Con, for also throwing in that generous support. And Con said, in 2022, 70% of Ukraine supported Russia. If Russia went into Kyiv with marching band music, Kyiv would have thrown rose petals at their feet. Instead, Russians went into Ukraine to, quote-unquote, denazify using war crimes. And the phrase, I need ammunition, not a ride, became legendary. Now, Con, that figure right there that you're quoting from 2022, that is Russian propaganda that the Russian general just said was false. Now, he said the Russian intelligence services, totally made that up, apparently, and it just blatantly misquoted the number. So they're blaming that for the reason why this is failing. They underestimated how many Ukrainians actually hated the Russians because the number right there is just pure propaganda that they were quoting. So that number there is not totally accurate, though. But overall, though, it was so stupid for Russia to go into Ukraine. It was so stupid from the get-go. And the reason was clear. It was Putin's ambitions, his own personal ambitions. It was never about anything else. But Enforcer, what say you?
I don't agree with Enforcer Matt on that. And also the 70% number, from what we know, was only said said by the Russians, because I don't even know where they would get that number from. Because it's like, if the Ukrainians openly did support a Russian invasion of Ukraine, the Russians had already technically invaded Ukraine by then already from 2014. Why wouldn't they've all just started revolutions across the country to become a part of Russia? Instead, we saw that more pro-European Union and pro-NATO leaders like Zelensky were getting elected in landslides by the public. Even the predecessor to Zelensky, Petro Poroshenko, who was also a very pro-EU, pro-NATO sort of a president in Ukraine, was also elected by fairly large numbers, although his presidency would then be overshadowed by corruption allegations and actual acts of corruption. But nevertheless, I would have to say that it is something else how the Ukrainians have fought for 1,381 days, and they continue to. It's even crazier, folks, because I was watching that 2,000 meters to Andriivka the other day, and it ended with it saying the war keeps going, and now in November of this year, Russia controls 20% of Ukraine. And it was funny to me because they made it sound like the Russians are just marching on, but we in year one of the show. In year one, when we had the 1 year anniversary show and we had some guests on, there was actually a guest behind the scenes. I won't mention their name. Matthew knows who they are, though, because you'll remember him. The guy, I'll say what I want. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
So that guy was actually saying to us back then, because I said, oh, well, the Ukrainians are really giving up really good resistance here. I think they're actually going to be able to hold on. And they're like, well, they're certainly not winning, considering that they hold 20%. Well, Russia holds 20% of Ukraine in Ukraine's land. That was 3 years ago now. It's 3 years later, and they still only have 20% of Ukraine. So as far as advances or gains that the Russians have been making over the past 3 years, an immeasurable percentage, they haven't even increased the amount of land they control by 1%. It was 20% 3 years ago. It's still 20% today. That's not a winning war by any metric, and it seems as though the Russians got some pretty bad intelligence, if the story is true that Churkin's saying, that led them to invade the country, because anyone could have seen otherwise before they even tried. But a humongous thanks to you so much once again for that massive support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. So a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And with that, folks, it's time for us to move on to the last question of this segment, and then we're going to be getting on into the rest of the news.
All right, so our last one of the segment goes to Bobo Uzala, also now known as Fog37. And thank you very much, Bobo, for that $50 support as always. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And Bobo said, I like to keep the lights on. And thank you. We like to keep the lights on too. We like the light. We don't like the dark. We don't like the dark. Some say the dark's good. I say it's bad. But he said lights on like Motel 6. Is this an unwarranted plug? And go LSA.
I mean, kind of, it kind of is, but I mean, I'm fine with it, and I thank you so much for helping to keep the lights on, Boba Vasquez. We thank you greatly, because folks like you help us to be able to do this thing as a full-time job, and have us focus all of our efforts on being able to sit here every night and cover the news from around the entirety of the world. And I gotta say that it's an absolutely incredible and wonderful thing to know that folks like you have always been helping out this channel, and always helping us to keep this thing running, because you help us to be able to say, long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never die, and to be able to feast down on them delicious Costco chickens. So a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, folks, it's time for us to move on into the next segment of our news, which is all of the rest of the news for the night. So strap yourselves in, folks, sit down and get real comfortable, because we're about to be covering a humdinger amount of news. We've got a lot of it. And moving us on down into the Caribbean, we have been able to hear of additional statements by the United States. There's been words of escalation made today by Victoria Coates, who was a former national security advisor, who stated, if Maduro doesn't resign on his own, make no mistakes about it. Once you have this kind of hard power in the region, if Maduro will not do the right thing, there is the possibility of escalation. Once again, making it somewhat clear that a lot of people are on the page, bombing's got to happen soon. And meanwhile, we were able to hear that Nicolas Maduro was on a show in Venezuela and was doing his thing. So here
we can't show this. We can't show this right here.
Oh, we can't?
No.
So how are we supposed to do the segment? How are we supposed to do the bit?
Peace. I want peace. Peace, please, peace. We have to peace.
Imagine all the people.
Peace.
But basically, he was doing his normal thing. We can't show the clip, so that kind of killed the build up to this. But it was his deal. It was his shtick. But moving on from that, we were able to hear, moving on out of the whole hunt for Captain Crack Sparrow deal right there. Up in Washington D.C., that the National Defense Strategy has come out for this year. I took a read of it, folks, and I gotta say, folks, I don't know. It felt more like reading the transcript of a political rally more so than the national defense strategy. And usually there is a little bit of politicism in the national defense strategies. I cannot deny that. I've read all of them for the past few years, and all of them have a little bit of politics in them. A little bit like my administration's doing good. This one was it's basically God on Earth's running America, and it's the greatest thing ever seen since sliced bread, and everything was like that. But yeah, it came out, and there were some interesting points. I'll actually just bring y'all straight to it instead of reading these bullet points. I'll hit the more important points that we can see in it as far as foreign policy goes. We're going to completely skip over all the domestic political stuff, which, I'm not even kidding, folks, when we cut out the domestical political stuff, because I just would skip past it after a point, it cuts down the national security strategy, or the NDS, or the national defense strategy, it's sometimes called, from about 33 pages to maybe 7. There's kind any national security strategy in this. It's mostly domestic political stuff, like this. I just kind of want to give you all a little bit of an idea. I'm not saying I agree or disagree with any of this, but after 4 years of weakness, extremism, and deadly failures, blah blah blah, it goes on like this for dozens of pages. So it was very hard to read through a lot of this and get to the point where it actually laid out what America is planning to do for national security reasons and strategy concerns. So I'll skip past most of that, and also. Apparently we have to explain what is American strategy and how it went astray, instead of just I gotta say this, folks. I gotta say this because I cannot stop and not say this. Why in the world do we need to know how it went astray? Who cares? There is no election right now. The next election is in 3 years. Who cares how the last administration went astray if it did? It's we're here in the present day right now. It's why don't we just talk about what we're doing right now? They literally had a whole chapter to explain why the last administration's foreign policy was so terrible, and this current administration's foreign policy is going to be the greatest thing, and then they hardly explain how it will be. But anyways, let me move on past that, and let me get down to the part where they actually start explaining what we're going to be doing. So here we are. So basic, more political stuff, President's the peacemaker of the planet and God on Earth and all. So moving on past all of this, because I actually have to get to the part, even in the national strategy part, where it actually lays out the national strategy. Let's see here. Here we are. Here we are, finally. Page 19. Page 19 of 33. We finally make it to what we're doing with national defense strategy. So, point A is the Western Hemisphere, which is the Americas. So, in short, this will explain here if you actually read it. And if you want to read it, there is a link to this on the map, link in the description below to that map. This basically says that the United States is going to reinvigorate the Monroe Doctrine and continue to emphasize a large amount of control over the Americas. Generally, we already exercise a large amount of control over the Americas and have been for some time. So this is apparently just saying that we're going to keep on doing that because, look at the Americas. And beyond a country like Colombia or Venezuela openly saying unfriendly stuff about the United States, which is nothing new, by the way, at least in terms of American history or the history of the Americas, not really a lot's changed. So apparently that's just going to be...
Wasn't the Monroe Doctrine about keeping Europe out of our hemisphere? It wasn't about keeping China and Russia out of it. It was about keeping Europe out of it, wasn't it?
It was really more so about just keeping foreign influence in general out. It didn't really say specifically Europe, but it was more so targeted towards Europe when the Monroe Doctrine was originally created.
Okay, so basically what they're saying here by wanting to reinvigorate the Monroe Doctrine is they want to basically... I'm not really sure how to interpret it. Do they want to get control and invade a bunch of South American countries, or do they simply want to do what, control the trade, or what?
So here's what they are actually wanting to do. Our goals for the Western Hemisphere can be summarized as enlist and expand. We will enlist established friends in the hemisphere to control migration, stop drug flows, and strengthen stability and security on land and sea. We will expand by cultivating and strengthening new partners while bolstering our own nation's appeal as the hemisphere's economic and security partner of choice. Which they really don't have to do. I mean, like the second part, they don't have to do at all because literally every single country in the Americas that's important, which is basically just Canada and Mexico, already consider the United States not only to be their most important economic partner, but also their most important strategic partner as well. So I don't really know why in the world we're having to go out and get people to realize that America is a good friend to have because we've done that for about the past 70 years, really the past several hundred here in the Americas at least. So I don't really know what the point of that was. And then it goes through how they're going to enlist and then also expand in somewhat more detail. But it's basic. Like, I'll just read it to y'all. American policy should focus on enlisting regional champions that can help create tolerable stability in the region, even beyond those partners' borders. These nations would help us stop illegal and destabilizing migration, neutralize cartels, nearshore manufacturing, and develop local private economies. Now, one thing I actually will say that is a fairly good move is that they're actually saying that they want to once again start conducting nearshoring. This is actually something that I've talked about quite a great deal, is having a large amount of manufacturing move to Mexico and supplant it from China and India, because it would be far better to have a Mexican-aligned trading partner that is already aligned to the United States and within our sphere that also provides cheap labor, which is generally what these companies are looking for, rather than having all of this manufacturing in a country like India or China, which are clearly a part of the BRICS alliance and openly un-American. We will regard and encourage the region's governments, political parties, and movements broadly aligned with our principles and strategy. Now, this is the part I don't agree with because I don't really know why in the world the United States government, which is supposed to be just looking out for the business in the United States, is apparently going to start openly supporting a specific political spin in other countries. Because just to say this, folks, this is the problem with this. So right now, some people are going to say that this is great, and I'm sure some clown is about to come in here in the live chat and say that we have Trump derangement syndrome. But if you set out a precedent like this means that if the let me just say it fairly here. If the Republicans are going to push Republican ideology right now while they're in charge, a Democrat might come in the next 3 years and start doing that equally to every other country on the planet with the precedent laid out that that's entirely acceptable now. This isn't a good thing because also this is going to make the foreign policy sphere a lot more unstable because instead of making it pretty much entirely business related like it should be and like it has been, we're going to turn this into a political playground, which is not only going to heavily destabilize the position that we have with our allies and pretty much make it to where our allies are changing administration after administration and election after election, it's also going to make it incredibly difficult for foreign countries to be able to follow along with the United States because depending on what political party is in charge, the entire situation may change overnight for them. So this isn't really a good approach. Like this should be completely left out. This is not something that any U.S. government of any type, of any party should be trying to encourage or support, because this is going to start creating a very destabilized situation because every political party in the country is going to start doing this. This isn't a good move. But moving on from that, now of the Americas, it generally just explains the rest of it being that they're wanting to destroy the cartels is basically the rest of it. Moving on into Asia.
What do they say? What do they say about Europe? Like that's the one that most people are really wanting to see is what are they saying about Europe and NATO?
What they're generally saying about Europe and NATO, we'll skip down to here. I'll read this off for y'all right here. Promoting European greatness. And I got to skip past most of this because most of this
there should be a list of bullet points that say exactly what they're trying to do near the bottom.
Yeah, so here it is. So our broad policy for Europe should prioritize reestablishing conditions of stability within Europe and strategic stability with Russia. Enabling Europe to stand on its own feet and operate as a group of aligned sovereign nations, including by taking primary responsibility for its own defense without being dominated by any adversarial power, cultivating resistance to Europe's current trajectory within European nations. So basically the same thing we're saying we're going to do in the Americas, but also within Europe as well. Opening European markets to U.S. goods and services and ensuring fair treatment of U.S. workers and businesses, building up the healthy nations of Central, Eastern, and Southern southern Europe through commercial ties, weapon sales, political collaboration, and cultural and educational exchanges, ending the perception and preventing the reality of NATO as a perpetually expanding alliance, and encouraging Europe to take action to combat mercantilist overcapacity, technological theft, cyber espionage, and other hostile economic practices. So that's basically the whole strategy laid out right there.
Yeah, the one that's the most disturbing to me is the one about ending the expansion of NATO. In my opinion, a huge purpose of NATO is to gain more members. We're trying to expand our sphere of influence. That's what NATO was trying to do originally. It's a defensive alliance, but we're supposed to make sure that we're expanding the membership if we can, because that ensures that we'll have them on our side. So I'm not sure why we'd want to end that. It seems kind of like a weird thing to say. Also, by the way, that first bullet point up there about reestablishing stability with Europe and Russia, that is clearly appeasement. That's just straight up appeasement right there. It's literally writing basically the definition of appeasement without saying the word in that first bullet point.
Yeah, it really is. And there's actually a whole bunch of issues that I have with this, folks. Reestablishing conditions of stability within Europe. We already have a very stable position with Europe. Our position with Europe has been completely unchanged because of the war in Ukraine. Our trade position with Europe, as a matter of fact, over the past few years, has been growing year over year in terms of the overall amount of money and billions that is being handed off between the United States and Europe because of that trade. So there's absolutely nothing that the war in Ukraine has done to weaken our position with Europe. With the Europeans. As a matter of fact, if anything, it strengthened it. Additionally, having Europe stand on its own feet is fine, but having them take primary responsibility for their own defense, that's something that I honestly got to say isn't a good move. We're pretty much encouraging them in every way to become a completely independent sort of a sphere of influence separate to us. And I'm not saying that we have to make sure that the Europeans are handicapped, at least in their strategic abilities to defend themselves, for the United States to be the leader of the sphere. But at the same time, putting it this way, it's practically like taking Europe and throwing them out on their own and allowing them to really do whatever they want because they got the muscle to do it now. And not only that, the economic power to really leverage that however we want or however they want. Also, once again, political meddling, which isn't really a good move. And then also opening up European markets to U.S. goods and services, which already exists. It's just that there isn't really a large draw in Europe for American goods in a lot of these countries. The trade deals we have with European states is pretty much a flat rate tariff, both for imports and exports. A lot of Americans want European goods, not really a lot of Europeans want American goods. That's why there's a deficit. The whole idea of a end to NATO expansion is a little bit silly considering that there already is a limit in the NATO charter to NATO expansion. NATO can't end up expanding to encompass every nation in the entire globe. It can only include countries north of the Tropic of Cancer, and also it can only include countries that are within a specific, I believe it is a latitude inside of Europe or inside of the Americas. So it's not like NATO can just endlessly expand. It has a actual defined limit already to who can even try and apply to join. So I don't really know what the point of that is. And on top of that, that is clearly telling the Russians, we're going to just pretty much give everything else up that isn't a part of our alliance or our sphere yet. And we're just going to allow you to exploit that 100% and put ourselves at a disadvantage against the Russians for no apparent reason other than a lack of follow through. So a little bit of an interesting national defense strategy. The situation in the Middle East is also a little bit interesting, but considering that we have to get to a lot more news, we'll save that for another time. Still, a lot of people aren't talking at this moment about that provision, that perpetual expansion of NATO has to stop. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right. So, what is your idea about that? Because that's a pretty bold thing to say for the U.S. to say they're going to end the expansion of NATO, apparently permanently, according to their national defense strategy here. So, is it a good idea or not? And about 63% said it's not a good idea. NATO should keep expanding, while 16% said NATO should not keep expanding, and 14% said only expand in strategic instances. So, like I said earlier, part of the reason that NATO exists is to gain new members. We've gained a couple of new NATO members just over the last couple of years alone. So, I don't see any problem with NATO expansion. The only country that has a problem with it is the enemy, which is Russia. So, I'm not sure why we'd be wanting to play into their desires. I'm not sure why we'd want to do that, because if a country in Europe or any other country wants to join NATO, why would we tell them no? I mean, there's no reason other than to to appease Russia at that point. So I'm not sure why we should worry about that, considering that Russia is literally aggressing against every country in Europe. But I'm with the 63%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to be with the 63% as well. NATO should keep expanding because it isn't even really expansion. And as this is also something I saw someone in the chat say, someone said, you guys are completely missing what this is. This is conventional, not NATO weakness. Where else are they going to expand? We're on their border. Christ's sake, bad takes. That's honestly a goofy take. It's not expansion. When NATO expands, that suggests that we take an army and we march into another country, invade them, defeat them, conquer them, and then bring them into NATO, like the Borg from Star Trek or something like that. That's not how NATO works, and there's a complete misconception of how the NATO alliance is designed to operate. NATO is designed as a defensive alliance. NATO poses no threat to Russia unless if they want to invade someone that's in NATO. That's the only time that NATO ever poses a threat to Russia. There's literally nothing in the NATO charter that allows for NATO to undertake an offensive action whatsoever, and there's nothing at all in the NATO alliance that allows for us to invade another country, conquer it, and then force it to become a part of NATO. Everyone who became a part of NATO has joined by their own volition, through their own citizens, voting in a government that was heavily pro-NATO and heavily pro-EU, most likely simultaneously, that then went into the EU ascension process, and then also went into the NATO ascension process, and then were unanimously accepted by all NATO members. So this is not an expansion. And on top of that, why in the world should we start telling countries now in Eastern Europe that feel unsafe and feel like the Russians are going to invade them and take advantage of the fact that they're not in a larger defensive alliance to protect themselves, and tell them that they're going to be entirely on their own for the Russians to invade them later and kill their mothers and violate their children and do everything else that they've done in Ukraine, and tell these people that they're on their own? Why in the world would we do that? A lot of these people in these NATO countries. You know what else is even crazier is that people make it sound like NATO is. This is what I don't get. People say that NATO is an existent threat to Russia, but at the same time, they also say on the same token that European countries spend so little on their own defense that Russia could walk in tomorrow and take over pretty much the whole of Europe without a fight. It's like, how in the world can those two things exist together? These countries, on one token, are not a threat to anyone and are completely incompetent, according to these people. And then on the flip side, they're also a huge threat to Russia because they could invade Russia and kill everyone in their country, which is completely different sides of the same coin. So I would say that NATO should continue to expand, and there's no reason at all that we should hamstring or limit the abilities of our sphere of influence to expand, especially when people are actually requesting to join instead of being forced to join. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, we're going to be moving on from the national defense strategy, and we're going to be moving on into the Indian subcontinent. As we have heard today, the Republic of India is apparently going to be trying to stay a little close to Russia. Putin stated Russia seeks multifaceted partnership with India beyond energy, claiming 80% trade growth over 3 years, while praising the current government's independent policy and economic achievements. We've also heard that there are some additional details that came out today. Apparently, India has struck a new military pact with Russia, giving India access to Russian naval ports in the Arctic, where Putin is building up troops, nuclear assets, and attack submarines, as we've all seen over the past years. Russia will also train Indian seafarers to operate in polar waters, strengthening the alliance in the region, expected to become a major new global frontier. So it does appear at the moment that there is fairly interesting sort of an alliance appearing at the moment between the Republic of India and the Russian Federation, and clearly showing that the Indians ran right away from the Western sphere and right to the Russians after we ended up dissing on them a little bit. So, you know, we pretty much kind of took India, which was kind of in the middle for like a good while, actually, about a decade, completely smashed the relationship we had with them over the course of just this 1 year, and they went running right back into BRICS, so now we have to treat them as an adversary. We also have been able to hear that the People's Republic of China is building up bases along the Indian border. As satellite footage has shown over just the past few years, new air bases are opening up within the area of the Western Theater Command of the People's Republic of China, which is giving us an indication that China is planning on conducting some larger operations within this area that will require greater facilities and also a larger amount of present forces. A lot of people have actually been talking about this meeting between the Indians and the Russians today, and whether or not it's a major concern to them. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
All right. So we did see today that India's Modi met with Putin and signed a new military alliance with Russia in the Arctic. So is it a concern? 40% said yes, it's a major military concern, while 26% said it signals a strong Russia-India alliance, and 28% said it really doesn't change much. It's not that big of a concern. So the thing that's concerning to me is not necessarily the military alliance in the Arctic. That's whatever. Like India has access to some ports in the Arctic now, whoop-de-doo. But the part to me that's concerning, though, is that India is going full-fledged, like full throttle, into a very, very strong relationship with Russia, which is not good. Like the enforcer mentioned, it seems like Modi has made up his mind to turn away from the United States completely and jump off the fence and go completely toward the Putin sphere of influence, which is not good. So I would say it's a concern for that reason alone. Also, there was a cartoon that was put out on Indian state television today that apparently showed Putin and Modi smiling and riding in a motorcycle together. And the U.S. president was standing at a gas station in this cartoon, and he was left behind as those two rode off into the sunset, and they were laughing at him. So the cartoon, it tells you a little bit about their mindset. India is going to play the hell out of the United States, along with Putin, who's been doing it the entire time, and that's the concern to me. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd say that it is a significant concern for economic reasons and strategic reasons because of the fact that the Russian Federation, well, really, honestly, folks, the honest truth is that earlier in the year when Pakistan and India were going at it, the president shit on the Indians so badly publicly that they completely distanced themselves from the United States from that point on and are having practically nothing to do with us. That's basically what happened. Over the past few years, India has been somewhat neutral and has been building up some significant economic relations with us here in the West, but also at the same time trying to balance what they were doing with the Russians. But from time to time, the Indian government would make statements that generally would align with a Western position, like the Russians should stop the war in Ukraine and should stop murdering innocent Ukrainians and so on and so forth. Things like that. Then we crapped on them, and then they practically just walked off instantly and have now gone all the way into BRICS. I mean, they've gone to the point that they're going to the Chinese, which they have a huge amount of issues with, and they're even building up their relationship again with the Chinese over what we did to them. So it appears that we've completely lost them. This is a significant military concern, considering that India was really kind of our big hope to have a country that was aligned with NATO directly in the middle of what China is most likely going to attempt to develop as their own independent sphere of influence around the Indian Ocean. And we've kind of lost that at this point. The only thing we have in the area is the British Indian Ocean territory, and that's about it, or Diego Garcia as it's called. But that's basically it. So not really a good strategic position to be looking at, and I gotta say, not really a good thing overall, but it is what it is. We'll have to just work with it, how it exists now. But anyways, with that, we are going to be moving on from that news and going on over to the Indian-Pakistan border, because near the area of Chaman today, a firefight is actually broken out between Pakistani and Taliban forces, with this clip being taken right here.
ملګرو مخامخ پر دروازه باندې جنگ شروع شو الله دې خیر پیښ
Very
Must have been the wind.
Honestly, man, it was like the quietest firefight ever. It was like 3 shots, and they're like, oh, look at that. But still, it appears that there was a very small firefight along the Pakistani-Afghan border, and that was basically it for the day. Nothing major came out of it. But moving on from that, it's now time for us to get back on into Ukraine, because we have a lot of news to cover from the war in Ukraine. And of course, we have to cover all of the Ukrainian strikes that were conducted successfully overnight. We were able to see the Ukrainians did hit and destroy the Russian refinery at Ryazan for the 20th time.
Oh, блядь.
That one missed a little. Like, that one hit an apartment building, so, you know.
Охуеть!
Охуеть! Вот так-то.
Я это засняла, блядь.
They're hotboxing in the penthouse.
Ты сняла? Я, блядь, сняла. Сори, дом.
The Fisher-Price children's toy noise once again out there in the distance.
Oh man, that slide whistle and everything. This is where the explosion occurred within the refinery, by the way. We're about to show you all a little bit of a clip that we have of it, which is this one right here. Actually, sorry, correction, everyone. It's this one right here. That was actually a duplicate, but here is the clip filmed on a phone.
Блядь, охуеть.
There's the smoke rising from the hit at the refinery, but it does confirm that the Rizon refinery was hit once again overnight and does appear to be out of action for a while until repairs can be effected on that part of the facility which was hit. Meanwhile, the Sizran refinery, which was hit about a day ago, is still on fire today. Several parts of it are on fire, as a matter of fact. Man, is someone playing that loud drum and bass?
I think so.
It's
Drum and
quite,
hard bass.
man, it's quite enough. We probably won't be copyrighted, you know? But moving on out of that and out of the area of Sizran, and we also have to move on down into the area of Temryuk, because yesterday the Temryuk facilities were hit. Today, the Temryuk facilities were hit a second time. Wow! Oh, wow!
That's liquid natural gas exploding right there, by the way.
Yes, it is. Take a look at that. Chestnuts roasting on an open fire. I've had no coffee tonight, by the way, folks, and it really is actually hitting me hard tonight.
You know, this is a very. Can you mute that wind noise right there? That's very loud, by the way. But this port right here is very important for Russia because it does provide a area for them to bring in bulk cargo, including the LNG, which is on fire right there. So it is a big loss right here in Krasnodar Krai. They're crying a river in Krasnodar, as they say.
Yes, they are. And here's another clip of the fire as well. The fire burns brightly, believe. Very nice, Blue. We also have another clip of it still burning right here. Look at that. Really, it was just that first part of the clip. We didn't see that in any of the other ones, but the rest of it may as well just be any other clip, basically from the same town at the same angle. But moving on out of Temryuk and the major hit that was caused there, we also saw that the Ukrainians have also landed some other big hits with the GER against Russian aircraft within Crimea. Or as they called it on that intro card, Krim. The Krim de la Krim.
Primary. It's a bird with a blue eyes. Oh, look, a radome.
Oh my god, it was Spaceship Earth from Epcot. Oh my god. Dude, that honestly, man, like the giant like Spaceship Earth thing at Epcot, it honestly just looks like a giant radome, really.
Yeah, it kind of does, like a big golf ball or something.
Man. A big old radome, honestly.
They were picking off, what the?
What the?
Go back for a second. Watch this guy. Look. He's about, there he is. Look at him. He is bolting.
Oh, yeah, they went the other way. Oh,
that guy didn't like it. That guy broke his ankles.
Bro, he broke his own ankles.
They are hitting expensive equipment one after the other. I mean, this was a lot of hits.
Oh, look at this. It's a motor pool. Oh, and that's an SU-24. Wow. It's gone, too. That's actually probably the most expensive thing they hit right there. But the hits in Crimea were quite successful overnight. Also, we were able to hear that Ramzan Kadyrov, a.k.a. the Hammond Cheddar Man, is crying right now over the loss of his beautiful skyscraper. According to
that picture though is horrible right there. I mean, he really does look like he's like a child throwing a tantrum in that picture right there.
I'm not happy about this, Dawn. It's not a good Dawn. But he has threatened Ukraine with a gift in return. He called the attack a sign of the Ukrainians' desperation and promised a swift response. In response to this, the Akhmat has stated that instead of making 5 TikToks a week, they're going to make 30. So they're really going to be getting back at the Ukrainians with this one. But that's generally the news out of Grozny, is that he actually made an official statement about the skyscraper getting hit. You generally wouldn't think you'd make a comment on that because it kind of shows that you have absolutely no air defense within your oblast, and it's kind of pointing it out when you bring it up. But, you know, he doesn't really know that, so he just went with it. Also, there was a
Well,
pretty.
the crazy part is the building they hit was one of their skyscrapers. We showed it last night on the air, like toward the end part of the stream. That's when it happened. It hit one of their really nice skyscrapers. It was actually on a draft of currency they were going to put out, so it's a very important building for them symbolically. But the actual target, according to reports, was not this building right here. It was actually the FSB headquarters down the street, which is literally just a couple blocks down the road. And apparently, Kadyrov's own electronic warfare sent the thing off course, and it veered right into their prized building, apparently, due to the electronic warfare.
Man, let's see, Chechen money. Let me go find that. Chechen money. Let's find it. Why in the world did they pull up the Czech Republic? We're not looking for the Czechs. So apparently, well, I don't know where in the world they were supposed to have it on any money. Or was it like the new ruble or something like that?
It was like some, like, you know how on the back of like money they'll have like a picture of something, like, like the Washington Monument or something. They do the same thing here. Apparently they had like a draft where it had that building and also two other skyscrapers in the same picture. I don't think it ever became currency, but they had like a draft where they're going to like make it public and stuff, but it was a while back, and I think there's like a picture floating around on Twitter of it.
Man, I'm going to have to go and look for that. But I actually did hear, Matthew, that one of the residents of this building actually ran out and started screaming into the streets about the attack, and Ramzan Kadyrov actually responded to him as well. You know who that was?
Who was it?
Oh my God, they hit my building!
Oh my God, look at this. This guy's, I mean, this is, what's this woman's name?
This woman's name is Nikki Maduro. You've never heard of her before.
Yeah, I've never seen him. I mean, I'm not one to judge on looks. I mean, that's not everything, but I mean, she's interesting. But this guy right here, I don't know, or this woman, excuse me. I'm sorry. So excuse me, sir, ma'am. But anyway, yeah, he's not going to Chechnya, or she's not going to Chechnya. Excuse me, not going to Chechnya.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I gotta be honest, man. I've heard some very questionable things about Nikki here. I've heard that Nikki likes to get involved in some possible cartel activities, maybe a little bit of dealing and wheeling here and there. Really questionable stuff right there. Really questionable stuff. But we're gonna keep an eye on Nikki here, because Nikki could end up anywhere. This is gonna end up like, well, you know that old thing, folks. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? We're gonna be saying here in a little bit, once Venezuela gets attacked, where in the world is Nikki Maduro? Like, that's gonna be the next Carmen Sandiego. So, that's what it is. That's what it is. But anyways, we're going to be moving on out of Chechnya, and we're going to be moving on up and into Koisk, because we also were able to see there was a little bit going on up here too. Listen to that. Oh, it's getting louder.
It's a damn bumblebee.
Okay, we're gonna turn that.
Damn, bro, that car horn was louder than the drone.
Bro, that car horn pierces the veil. Like, it's like, damn. That's still loud. What type of car horn was that at the end, dude? It like let out like a cartoon thing and like went and it's like, and then it ended. Listen to it.
And the battery's no good. The battery's dying while the car horn's going off. Oh, look, there's fire in the street.
Man, a little fire in the street.
Man, the Russians made their car horns like make people bleed in the eardrums. Like, those are loud.
Man, they said, don't worry. They'll know that there was an incident because they'll all be deaf.
Wait a minute. Do you hear that in the background, like very faint? It sounds like someone stumped their toe or something in the background. I don't know if you can hear that.
Yeah, it does. So when,
someone's going, oh, man. I think they're having a domestic.
Bro, they getting domestic up in here in the middle of a drone attack. They go, and then there's someone running down the street down there. Slender Man, apparently. Oh, there's a little fire over here, too.
Something just spontaneously combusted in my backyard. What's he doing? What's he looking in the car?
Man, he's trying to see
He's
if
like,
he
this is my
can boost
chance.
something. he's like the insurance, like cover it. Someone apparently just broke a glass. Mazel tov, I guess. I don't know. Listen to that. Who the hell did that? Like, what?
Oh, damn. Maybe it was a domestic. I was joking, but I mean, there's glass smashing, there's people screaming. I hear Olga in the streets.
Oh, look,
Oh,
another
look at that.
sporadic
What the
fire.
What is going on? Like that? What? There's nothing to even start that.
This is a fire marshal's worst nightmare. The spontaneously combusting lawn. Like, it just happens to catch on fire for no reason. And more glass breaking. What the hell's going on? This is like the freaking
What, did
Twilight
somebody
Zone.
throw a Molotov? Was that a Molotov that somebody threw out there?
No, because the sound happened well after it caught on fire.
Huh, that's weird.
And there it goes. Man, meanwhile, down the street, I told you to cook my dinner while you asshole, bam! Like, it's like, damn, it's like they getting into it down the street, while the spontaneously combusting fires are just popping up wherever. But that was what was going on in an average night in Kursk. I mean, do we need to explain any more about that? It's Kursk. But moving on out of that, a lot of people are talking about that Kadyrov claim that Kadyrov made today. There's going to be there's going to be like blood in the streets or something. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
All right, so we did see that Ukraine launched a drone strike into the Chechen capital of Grozny last night, and now Kadyrov today is throwing a fit, and he vows revenge. He says he's going to send a gift over to Ukraine. So it is the season of giving, but I don't think they want what Kadyrov's giving. He's not giving anything good. So what happens now? So 41% said Kadyrov will do absolutely nothing. He'll do nothing. 36% said they will make more TikToks. And while 18% said Kadyrov will attack Ukraine soon. And I don't know. I'll be honest with you. Like, it's Akhmat. I mean, Akhmat is their best force that they have in Chechnya. So Akhmat is the one that let Russia get invaded. So I don't think that Chechnya is going to be doing anything too crazy to Ukraine. I think largely Kadyrov's just mouthing off like usual and nothing to be worried about. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to tell y'all, folks, I got to be honest with y'all, I just don't think there's going to be a lot coming out of this one. I remember when this guy right here, who is the right-hand man of Kadyrov, I got to be honest with y'all, folks, Kadyrov has got the face of like an infant that never grew up. It's like a baby face on like a 40-year-old obese man. But outside of that, this guy right here was the guy in charge of the Akhmat men when the Ukrainians pushed into Kursk, and all of them happened to be on lunch when it happened. So I don't really think they're going to be doing a lot. And also the fact that they're just cringe as hell is most likely going to be adding into the fact that they're not going to do anything. Oh, look. Man, that doesn't belong here under the Akhmat forces.
Nutsack. It's been a long time. How many years has it been?
Oh, about 2.5, maybe 3 almost.
The time goes by so fast. It feels like it was just yesterday.
Man, you got Nutsack in the middle. And then you got this guy. He looks like he's from a painting of the Zaporizhian Cossacks from like the 1800s. And then you got this guy over here who looks like he's very unwell. Like he looks like he's sick. Man, I remember those times, folks. Do y'all remember those times? The Battle of Bakhmut way back then, don't y'all? Oh man, I wonder what type of memory lane we can get by looking at these pictures. Oh look, there's that guy again. This is really the guy who pretty much runs the Akhmat more so than Kadyrov. It's this guy right here. But I got to tell y'all, folks, he just doesn't. He doesn't have like the aura of a leader, you know. He just doesn't.
I'll be honest with you. I don't have anything to prove it, and it's just my speculation. But he kind of looks, and also I'm not a doctor. Let me give all the disclaimers, by the way. I'm also not a physician, and I'm not a pilot. But at the same time, though, this guy looks like, sort of like, you know what fetal alcohol syndrome looks like? That whole thing? He kind of looks like the features are kind of like a little bit there.
Wait, are you saying that he looks like a climate activist?
Wait, what?
Oh, nothing. That joke fell flat. Some people might
Oh,
get it.
I didn't get it.
Wait, you don't get it?
No.
You know, how dare you? Yeah, you know, all that stuff, you know. Do you get it?
No, I think I have to let that one go.
All right. Oh, we'll just let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Oh, we're gonna get copyrighted. But anyways, beyond that, you know, he kind of does look like that a little bit. Also, the color of his skin, Matthew, makes me feel like he might have liver cirrhosis or something. Like it is or jaundice maybe. His skin is quite an odd like color, really, you know? Someone's about to say he's white. No, he's like no, he's well, obviously, but at the same time, he also looks unhealthy. But and also I see a lot of people did get it. Thank the Lord, folks. People got it. I thought I just made a joke that was going to completely flop, but a lot of people got it. But anyways, with that, folks, I don't think they're going to be doing anything. So, speaking of them doing nothing, the Ukrainians were doing something today. And it's time for us to get on into all that news that came out of Ukraine for the day. We were able to hear that according to a special interview given to Sky News, Ukraine's military chief, Oleksandr Syrskyi, has stated that giving up land is unacceptable in any peace deal with Russia and will not happen. So it does appear that the Ukrainians are once again saying they're not giving up the land. Which, why should they? Why should they? Why would anyone ever give up land? If you right now, American, were in the middle of a war where some country was sitting there and they were about 10 miles from where you're at right now, and you could hear the shelling and the shooting, and you knew that your countrymen were down there and just 10 miles down the street fighting and dying to stop them from pushing up and making your home the front line, would you want to stop fighting? Would you want to just say, yeah, let's give up the whole southeast or the northwest of the United States to an enemy country just to try and end this thing? Would you want to say that? No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. And then you sit there and say, but that's because it's America. Well, put yourself in their shoes. They're Ukrainians that live in Ukraine. They aren't Americans that happen to live in Ukraine. That's why they want to keep fighting, and that's why they're going to keep on fighting. Because who in the world is ever going to sit there and say, I'm just going to give up my land and my people and my family and everything else that's currently behind the occupied lines to sit there and just try and end this thing a little quick, like we're in a hurry or something. Who in the world would do that? Nobody would. But moving on from that, and on into our location unknowns, we also got to see that there was a little interesting news that came out today from the location unknowns. We got some more pictures of the flamingo. Oh, look at that.
Oh, yeah, that looks good. Carbon fiber.
It looks clean. Very clean. I like to see it. We also got to see that they were having to drag a damaged Caesar SPG. Crazily enough, folks, the Russians don't have Euro 4320s, but guess who does? The Ukrainians, of all people. They actually have some. But they were dragging a Caesar that had been heavily hit, and they're going to be trying to send it back to France to have them hold up their end of the warranty. The French will repair this thing and send it back to them, but it will take some time, especially with that kind of damage. We also were able to see the casualty report. Take a look at the casualty report.
Oh,
Oh!
2 Bobcat skid steers today. 2 of them right there. Oh, man, I'm telling you, 2. It's a BOGO, but tell us more.
Aw, man, it looks like they got 2 of them. You know what? Harassing YouTubers isn't good enough. Now I'm gonna harass federal agents and see if that gets me any better off. Aw, man. The hot dog man has nothing better than to make people's lives misery. It's what he does. It's what I do. But outside of that, Miss DC, keeper of the records, has stated that troop losses have jumped to over 1,200. Which is incredibly good. 424 drones is the 22nd highest daily loss. Ukrainian Special Operations drones units destroyed a Russian MiG at the Kacha Air Base and struck the Irtish radar system near Simferopol in Russian-occupied Crimea, which is incredibly good to hear. And according to our casualty report here, we were able to hear that 1,240 Russian soldiers will be pushing up the lilies today. We also were able to see that 1 APC was lost, along with 94 supply trucks, 34 artillery pieces, 424 drones, 2 MLRSs, 1 MiG-29 in particular, and 2 Bobcat skid steers. All in all, it was quite a good day, and a wonderful and incredible thing to see. And we love to see it, you know? We love to see it. But moving on, and out of that, and on into Kupiansk, we also saw the Ukrainians of the 138th Special Purpose Center conducting some work on the Russians. And it wasn't that plastic surgery kind of work. They were conducting that plastic explosives kind of work. See them wandering on into the woods.
Oh, this guy's got that canted red dot on this thing, on this rifle right here. That's interesting. That's the first time I've seen that on a battlefield gun.
Man, this guy has his stuff kitted out to the max. Like he was like, give me all
Yeah.
the pieces.
He's got a scope, a canted red dot. Let's say he's got a laser infrared sight on the front too. This guy's got everything.
Man, some people in Ukraine, they're fighting the war in Ukraine. Meanwhile, this guy here is playing Escape from Tarkov with the amount of accessories he's got on the gun. And he's also petting this cat right there. Look at that cute little cat. Everybody,
Ukrainians like to get the cats out of the way.
man, like you saw that from that 2,000 meters to a dream. That guy was like, "Oh my god, a cat!" He immediately grabbed it. He's like, "We're going to save it." He's like, man, I was like, that is honestly pretty cool that they would go out of their way to save a cat. But moving on from that and on down towards the area of Nikivka, we also get to see a little North Korean Type 75 getting obliterated today. And there goes the UAV.
That was no major loss. Oh wow, that thing right there might need another crash inspection. That didn't hold up that good. Oh look, a whole engine. What the?
And a whole engine. No, man, that's the rocket launcher.
Why did it look like it looked like a V8 from the side of it? Go back real quick.
That's
Bro,
right.
that looks like a V8 in my view over here. Like that looks like a straight up engine, but I'm seeing it now. It is the rocket launcher. I could have sworn that was a V8 like when I first glanced at it.
Let me go and get this for y'all right here really quickly. A little North Korean. Well, let me type this in because the Japanese one's a little bit better known. But oh, here we are. Here's what they blew up, by the way. If you want to see it in the closest that we can get to high definition Ultra HD, this is what they blew up. It was this little truck with the MLRS.
Oh,
on
a
the back.
clunker.
Yeah, it's bad. It's real bad. And you know the Russians are bad off when they're having to get these from North Korea to use. Man, I gotta be honest with you, man. Looking at North Korean stuff, it honestly kind of makes me sick. I mean, look at that. Like, they think they can actually go up against America with this stuff. They couldn't. Man, they could not. They might as well give up on that. They might as well give up on that while they're behind, you know. But they did hit it, and they also hit the MLRS tubes on the back, and then the rear hitch, and just a little extra, just to make sure that it's all nice and gone.
Honestly, I think they'd been better off if they had the Hemi on the back, like Joe Swanson said. I think that would have been more valuable.
I think it would have, honestly. Also, we got to see near to the Severansky Forest, the Ukrainians also hitting the Russians in the Yampol. When you hear them playing that trap remix.
That got me shook for a minute. I was like, what is that? Sounded like somebody's creeping up on me.
Man, somebody is coming up behind you, and it's the Ukrainian Special Forces, boy.
He said somebody's creeping up on him. Turn off the station if you don't like it.
But you see them having to climb through the barbed wire and getting up to the Russian positions. They're about to clear them out, nice and methodic-like.
So you fighting out the turn. You know the fighters that fight out the turn. You have to do something with them.
Listen, I don't fight with someone unless they, you know. What do you mean, Mike? I don't know if that was picked up on the mic, but
You have to go.
listen, you're gonna have to go now.
Man, honestly, when he said you have to go, I got up and left the screen.
Oh man, dude, he said you have to go, and the boss music started playing, like the boss fight music, and then they're like, oh okay, like
I said, you don't have to ask that a second time. I'm leaving. Don't worry, I'm leaving before you even said that.
yeah, bro. All he had to say was, you. I'll be like, yes, sir. All right, we're out of here. All right, everyone, pack up the cameras, get the microphone off them. We gotta go. And you know what? Forget the microphone.
If he'd have said, I think you need to travel to Timbuktu, I'd been like, I'm hopping on the plane right now.
Man, I would have said, gee, Mike, you know, that's a great idea. I was actually planning on going to a vacation there today. Like, man, I would be like, wow, man, you're a genius, really. A really smart guy. He's one of the smartest. But also we got to see down near the area of Seversk, the Russians getting hit by the drones. We all know the drones, don't we? Man, they got that strike group Apache down there. As we can see, they're dropping bomblets on them. They're quite effective. As you can see, the little blips of the Russians down there.
Also, by the way, did you cover the news about Britain and the $8 billion to Ukraine? By the way,
No, actually.
that's a big one.
Well, I mean, I suppose that we could go and cover it, if you'd like to. I didn't include it on the map tonight, but, I mean, we could. I even skipped over the Swedish news. I had it on the map, and then I just decided we weren't going to cover it because I was like, just to be honest, folks, support news doesn't really get a lot of people that hyped up. People are just happy to know that it's there, but they don't really like to hear about the details of it much, so I usually don't include most of it, unless if it's like some sort of drama, like with Belgium not wanting to liquidate it. But we can go and talk about this because the British didn't do this today. So the British government has authorized the liquidation of around $8 billion of Russian assets in the United Kingdom to try and fund and support the conflict in Ukraine. And a lot of people are wondering what the Russians are going to do about this. And Matthew, what are people thinking about it? And what are you thinking about it as well?
All right. So, like the enforcer mentioned, Britain is set to provide £8 billion, not USD, but pounds. That's actually more than USD to Ukraine by liquidating Russian assets held within Britain. So, is this going to trigger Putin to act? Because it seems like Putin's one of his red lines might be the liquidation of Russian assets. And it looks like 62% said it is not his red line, and Putin will merely threaten more, while 22% said this is Putin's red line, and this will trigger him to act. And 12% said it's a 50-50 chance of it. So this one right here, we have to give it its due. This is a very big deal because y'all might recall that Belgium right now, which is one of the largest holders of Russian assets in Europe, they are refusing to liquidate the assets because they are scared to death that Russia's going to come after them. So Belgium is kind of playing a little bit lame right now, a little bit cowardly. But Britain, though, Britain is doing a fantastic thing here with the $8 billion because if they can actually push this thing through, that will provide a lot of funding for at least 6 more months, in my estimation, to keep Ukraine funded all the way, and even then some beyond that. So I would say when it comes to triggering Putin to act, I think that there's a 50-50 chance of it, to be perfectly honest, because the funding by liquidating the Russian assets, Putin's already alluded to that could be something that sets him to go berserk, but he says that about everything, so you kind of got to sort of take that for what you will. But Enforcer, what say you?
I have a feeling they're going to do something. I don't think it's going to be paramount to a war. They've threatened war over literally everything, and nothing's ever been the red line that's actually been crossed. So I have a feeling that this will probably be a safe action for the British to take, but they will try and do something, either some form of hybrid war actions that they haven't conducted so far, or something along those lines, but it probably won't be anything like a direct armed attack against the UK or NATO in general. So I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. And moving on from that and back through the front, we also saw a Ukrainian attack being conducted on the town of Alchevsk last night.
На, еще. Сбили.
Oh. Would you? Look at that. Oh, he went crazy. He was tweaking at the end, man. He went, no, yes, man. And then clipped off. And we can also see the explosion from another angle.
Попал, сука. Кислородный, походу.
Everyone in
It's bad.
Everyone in Alchevsk was shocked. They were like, oh my God, they did it. Moving on down into the Pokrovsk area, we also got to see the 95th Air Assault Brigade intercepting their 100th Shahed. This is it right here. Oh, they were doing some pretty good work. They even made a remix out of it.
Also, by the way, Stephen Kirkland said seizing assets without a court order is an act of war. UK better start getting prepared. An act of war, that's, in my opinion, that's subjective. I mean, anything could technically be an act of war if the country deems it an act of war. It's basically up to the country because nothing, I mean, there may be some, like, maybe educational definitions of what an act of war technically is, but I mean, basically in real life, it comes down to whatever a country says an act of war is. So, I mean, Putin could call it that, but in reality, though, I just don't think it's going to be paramount to war either. I don't think. I would say not.
Also, my question is who is the court that gives the court order that has jurisdiction over Russia and the UK to make that even Stevens? Like, if a British, like, I don't really understand what you're getting at there, actually, because you're saying without a court order. I mean, this isn't exactly like a domestic situation inside of a country where, you go, well, he has a warrant. It's not really like that. This is situation in between two sovereign states. There is no Supreme Court between the two of them that has any ruling power to give a court order to authorize the seizure of assets from one or the other and make that fair. So I would have to say I don't really know whose court order is supposed to be the defining principle there, because there isn't really a court that could bind the two parties together and then have any enforcing power to do that either. But anyways, we got to see the Ronin unit in Zaporizhia also conducting attacks on Russian targets as well. There's a little bike right there.
Honestly, I think if Britain needs a lawyer, I think their lawyer could be Mr. Colt.
Man, Colt made them all equal. Man, I tell you.
And I think the Russians have Mr. Kalashnikov.
Man, the Russians have nobody now.
Yeah, they don't really have any of those. The UK has barristers. I've heard that they can make a good mean drink. Maybe a Moscow Mule, maybe.
Oh, man, that was a good one, actually.
They're going to serve up a Moscow Mule. He looks a lot like Lavrov.
Man, I mean, honestly, man, he kind of does, you know? Man, I gotta tell you, man, when not having coffee tonight's been hitting me like a truck. Usually I'm able to disguise it pretty well. Tonight, I actually just feel kind of like straight up exhausted. I'm sorry, folks. I don't mean to bring that up. It's just that some of y'all may be noticing I'm having a lot more downtime on air, and that's because I'm just I'm actually feeling exhausted because I did not have a coffee before the show. Just to let you
sound
know,
like a Russian that doesn't have their vodka. Kind of like a withdrawal or something.
oh, but yeah. But also, by the way, folks, the reason why is because all of my coffee filters, for some reason, have disappeared. I have no clue where they went, but I had loads of them. And then I went to go find them today because my little stash of them that I had by the coffee machine had run out. So I was like, well, let me go get some more of these. And I went to go where they should be to go get them, and there were none there at all. So I was not able to make a coffee tonight. And so I'm having to run the show as is. So hopefully I can get some here or find some really soon, because I gotta have that coffee to be able to run the show. It actually does make a pretty big difference. But nevertheless, folks, it is time for us to move on into the second segment of this stream, where we get to talk to each and every single one of y'all. Unfortunately,
I didn't take them. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I'm getting accused for taking your coffee filters. I didn't take anything. I've got my own coffee filters. I have my own money. Okay, I buy my own coffee filters.
Bro,
Because
I'm
like getting
that.
there's like a flood of people like blaming me like instantly for this. Like, look at, I mean, you see that you're like 50 people instantly blame me for taking their coffee filters. What the hell? Like, what's this about? How come I'm getting blamed for this?
This is crazy, folks. Matthew didn't do it. Matthew didn't do it. He hasn't even been. He didn't even know where the coffee filter box would have been. If he even tried to take it, he didn't do it. He's an innocent man. Y'all are persecuting an innocent man.
I even offered to let him come down to Enforcer Matt HQ and let him get some of mine. Like, I was trying to like help the situation here. I was trying to help, and meanwhile, I'm getting accused of being a thief, a robber, a
baron,
a lowlife, a baron. I'm getting accused of everything.
A downright miscreant. I mean, it's ridiculous here, folks. It's ridiculous, absurd. It's absurd, preposterous, downright ludicrous. Like it is insane. He didn't steal them. He didn't. He's an innocent man. He's an innocent man. I bet I gotta find some coffee filters, folks. I don't think they're even around here anymore, because I went everywhere in my house trying to find these things, and I just could not find them. So, it's a bit of an issue at the moment. So I'll have to see if I can find them at all, because I have no clue where the hell they ended up. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well. And with that, we're going to be getting on into the questions. Now that we've started a whole controversy now over where did the coffee filters go for some weird reason. But anyways, with that, what do we got, Matthew?
This is insane right here. Absolutely insane. I thought the LSA had my back. I didn't know that I was going to be accused of being a coffee filter thief. Of all things, a coffee filter thief. I've been accused of a lot of things. I've been accused of talking too fast. I've been accused of writing polls that are maybe a little bit too wordy, but I've never been accused I've never been accused of going to Nutland, by the way. That never accused of that. That's one of the things I've never been accused of. But I've never been accused of stealing coffee filters of all things. Now, I will admit though, these coffee filters are a special type. It's a type that you have to order off the internet. You can't find them around town, so it's really hard to get them. So that's why I offered to let the enforcer have some, because they're sort of hard to come by in person. So I said, here, have some. And as a big thank you, I got accused of stealing them in front of 8,000 something people.
Man, I
They
didn't
said he
accuse
stole
you
the
of
filters.
stealing them. I didn't
Oh, no, not
accuse you.
you, not you. I got accused by the whole world of taking the coffee filters of all things.
Dude, I just said on air, I was like, man, I'm sorry if I'm tired, folks. My coffee filters are missing. And then the entire world went, you are guilty. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, I started watching the chat after you brought it up, dude. It was like a flood of people like, he did it. And I'm like, what the hell? It's like, no, he didn't. It's like, I had the box. It's an X Bloom box of coffee filters. And I got it, opened it, and I was like, okay, I don't need all 100 of these out here right now. So I'll just take 20 of them, and then I'll save the rest of them for later. So I took out 20, put those back in the box, closed up the box, and then I put it in the kitchen somewhere. And I went down there today to go find the box, and it's literally nowhere. Like, I don't know what happened to it. Like, I'm thinking maybe, like, in the middle of something, I picked it up and I wandered off with it somewhere, and I just don't really remember where I put it. But that would be kind of hard to do because I literally put it off in a cupboard or a cabinet somewhere right after I got my filters for the machine. I don't know what the hell happened to them. This is like truly a mystery to me. I'm like, where in the hell did my coffee filters disappear to? Because I should have like 80 of them left or so. But anyways,
I did have coffee though. Like I actually did have a nice big cup of coffee tonight using my nice filters. And it was very good coffee. And also, by the way, I've stopped drinking the coffee black. I've actually started putting half and half in it. So it actually makes it a lot easier to drink doing that, obviously, because it kind of lessens the flavor of it. But it's actually pretty solid. I like it. I like it.
You know, everyone likes it. Everyone likes a good cup of coffee. I have mine black just because, honestly, I don't really like taking the time to fill it up. And honestly, I got used to tasting far worse coffee over the past few years. So this is honestly an upgrade. So with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well. I mean, kind of well. But, you know, we never know, folks. You never know where those coffee filters might end up. But anyways, with that, we're getting on into the questions. Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so let's see here. This has turned into a whole thing. I'm shocked. I'm having to put a poll up on this. Let's see here. There we go.
Don't do it. No.
There we go.
Man, you're
We're
going to
gonna
put
get to the
yourself
bottom
up
of
to a
this.
public jury? I just leave it alone. Like, oh my God.
I would rather be judged by 8,000 than 12. Well, maybe, possibly. I'm not sure. I'll find out. But anyways, moving on here from this, we are fresh out of polls. Well, actually, we just put one up, so we're not fresh out. But anyways, whatever. We're moving on to our super chat questions here, and our first super chat is going to go to Leesburg Paranormal, who puts in a $20 support. And thank you very much, Leesburg, for that $20 support right there. And he said, "Whenever I forget something or do something wrong, I say aloud, oh man, in the varmint's voice." Oh man, because of the show and LOT, LSA.
Oh man, I gotta say, Leesburg, I love to hear that. I love to hear that people take the jokes we do on air and they run with them and they make them their own jokes. That is one of the funniest things that I think has ever come out of this channel, is that our jokes are apparently funny enough to be repeated. But we do that a good bit too. We'll be sitting there like, oh man, I screwed that up. And then we'll be like, oh man, I screwed it up. Oh man. And you just got to try and stretch out the oh man as long as you can. And also make it sound as bummy as possible. But beyond that, a humongous thanks to you for the support. And I got to say, I love to know that you use that joke, because I love to know that people repeat any joke from this channel and think it's funny enough to do that. So humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
Also, it looks like I've been sentenced to guilt. 59% of the 500 people that voted against me, it said, yes, Matt took the coffee filters, while 41% said no. So it turns out it's not better to be judged by 8,000. It's better to be judged by 12, depending on where you're at. But honestly, though, I will say this. People caught on to something there. They said, Matt sure is talking fast. He's talking a lot, and that usually indicates guilt. And I'll be honest with you, that usually does actually indicate guilt. If someone is singing like a canary, that usually means that they're trying to explain away something that is bad. But honest, straight up honest though, seriously, I don't know what happened to his coffee filters. I will say this though, the counters over there, it could gotten lost, possibly. You might have accidentally thrown them away as well. Did you also, like seriously speaking, did you check the trash? Like seriously?
Man, it would have been thrown away a long time ago if it was thrown away. But dude, I wouldn't have thrown them
Damn.
away because I took them. Like I remember what I did with them. I took them, took that stuff out, immediately closed it up, and then I went and took it to the little pantry that I have, and I put it in there. And that was the first place that I looked, and I combed the whole thing over trying to find this box, and I couldn't find it in there. So guaranteed, honestly, it's probably just gone. Like it probably got thrown out or something, or it's been misplaced so badly, I'll probably not find it until I'm moving out again. But we'll see.
Damn. Well, it's a shame too. Also, some people are saying, "Damn, you'll have like custom coffee filters." It's not like a special filter, so it's like a normal like coffee filter. But the thing is, it's like a single serve brewer that we use for coffee. So it's like a smaller than normal filter. It's not like those big ones that brew like a whole pot of coffee. It's those ones that brew like one cup of coffee. So that's why they're unusual. They're not expensive either. I think it's like 1 cent a filter or something like that. It's just hard to find them in person, so you have to order them off the internet.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's one of the few things that we've actually ever put any real money into is trying to get some good coffee because considering that we have to drink it every day to run the show, we tried to up the quality of the product, which is the coffee at the end of it all. So we ended up getting these. I think they're called the X Bloom coffee machines, but they take in whole beans and it grinds it up on the spot and then pours water over it in a certain pattern to get you a pretty nice cup of coffee. And it honestly does make a difference. It feels a lot better than drinking Stoke or Busy. Because there was a decent amount of preservatives in both of those, and honestly, after drinking them for a while, I kind of started to feel like crap. So this kind of removes all that and makes it a lot easier to drink the coffee without feeling like garbage later, because it is just the straight up beans with nothing else, no preservatives or anything. So that's why we got them. Matthew has one, and then I have one. But that's generally why the whole coffee filter thing is an issue, and also why it's not a K-cup thing either, because a lot of people use the Keurig machines. You know, when we were kids, I remember when the Keurigs were coming in, because when we were kids, our parents still had a percolator, and then the Keurig came around, and it took them a while to get into that, because they were like, it seems like a gimmick, seems like a scam, and then they got one, and then they're like, wow, this is actually really convenient. You just pop the pot in, and the machine does everything for you. And honestly, that was like the big thing for the longest time until I got to the point where I was running the show like here, and then I was like, man, I really need something that honestly will really get me going rather than just like a cup of coffee. So then I got Busy, which was the first like nitro cold brew thing that I had, and that really was very effective at the beginning, and then it started to wear off. So now I'm back down to a normal dose of coffee, which helps me to get through the night. So with that, I hope that gives you all a little bit of a story about our coffee consumption habits that possibly will be something the FSB will use against us. But of course, we're friends with the Russians now. We love them, although they hate us. But it is what it is. Anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And our next super chat here goes to Chet Dalsky. And thank you very much, Chet, for that $20 support. And Chet said, good evening to the best news source. And I know you can't predict it, but what's your best estimate in when this war will end for Ukraine? And keep up the great work.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, Chet Dalsky. And I gotta say, predictions, as we always call them, crystal balling is a tough thing to do. It's practically impossible. But if I had to tell you when this war would end, I would say it's probably going to end about a year and a half from now, I would assume. That's what I would think. That's my rough estimate. But Matthew, what are you thinking?
Honestly, right now, I mean, I'll still say this. My best estimate for when the war is going to end is basically when Putin is no longer in his current position, however that may be. If it means he's ousted, if it means he passes away, or whatever the case, that's when the war is going to end. Because as long as Putin's in that position, he's going to be waging war against Ukraine. He's going to be waging war against NATO next. There's simply no way for this thing to end. If Ukraine ends, Putin's going to move on to NATO. I'm very confident about that. So when it ends for Ukraine, honestly, when Putin's gone, to be perfectly honest, and I have no idea when that's going to be.
And so Matthew's answer is he has no clue at all. My answer is maybe a year and a half. That'd be my honest opinion. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And a humongous thanks to you so much for support and also the massively kind words. We're greatly appreciative of folks who massively enjoy this channel and love to see it every day. Because if it wasn't for folks like y'all, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. We wouldn't be able to make it a reality every single day of the week for every single year. And it really is something else, folks, because I'll be honest with y'all, it's so weird because time flies in a flash when you're busy. And especially with a show, we're always busy. We're never not busy. And it's really weird to think back and think that law school was a long time ago. Like that whole thing was a long, long time ago, and college was a longer time ago. And it's just so weird to think about, folks, because I think about that, and what's really crazy is that right now, the people that we went to law school with, they're in their last, I think it's semester of law school before they take the bar and either pass or fail. And that's how long ago that was, because we were only there for about one semester and maybe a quarter of another. And it's already been long enough that that's pretty much already coming to a pass for everyone we already knew that was there.
They're just in time for AI to take all their jobs over, just in time with that 120,000 plus worth of debt.
Yay! Yay! Honestly, that might have been a good move by us, man. That was like a Jeff Bezos move right there, seeing into the future and be like, man, this ain't going to be amounting to nothing, and then just leaving. Because one thing, folks, that people are always going to like and appreciate is human-made content. And AI will never really be able to replicate what we do here on the show and be personable enough and kind of just basically have all the flaws, imperfections, and little quirks that people like us have. It probably will never be able to do that. So our job security is pretty decent as long as people always still enjoy our show and consider it to be the best out there. So with that, I hope that does address that quite well, because it is folks like you who have helped us to stay on air that long. But man, something else that's even weirder, Matthew, is that at one point because we graduated at the same graduation. We were in college doing this in undergrad.
Yeah, we were in college. Yeah, we were actually. Like I think my last year, or actually, I think it was 2 years of college. Actually, yeah, it was sometime like that.
Yeah, I mean it's so weird to think about that, folks. Like it's the weirdest thing to think that all of this time has passed since we started doing this, because when we first started doing this, Matthew and me were actually going to college at the UAB in Birmingham, and we had just started doing this. I had just turned 20, by the way, folks, when the war in Ukraine had started. I was only 20 by about a week at that point, or a week and a half, and then it started, and now I'm about to be turning 24 here in a couple of months again, and so it's like, that is so weird to think about all that time that's passed, and it's even crazier, man, because sometimes I go onto my Facebook and my Facebook will say, do you remember this from like 10 years ago? And it'll be like sophomore year in high school. And I'll be like, oh, that was 10 years ago? I was like, what the hell? I was like, that is whack. I was like, 10 years ago? Like, think about that, man. That's crazy. 10 years ago, all that was what our life was 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's really wild, honestly. I still say I could have never foreseen doing this as a career ever. Like, could have never foreseen it. The weird thing is, though, I thought I was going to enjoy doing the law. It turned out I really did not enjoy law school. I may or may not have enjoyed being an actual lawyer. I'm not really sure, but the whole law school thing turned me off of the whole thing. I was like, I don't like this at all. Like, I know some people say, oh, law school sucks, then the real practice is good. I was like, I've seen enough to know that I think I would rather do something else. And then got into this. And I was like, well, I studied political science in undergrad, and this is actually what I enjoy doing, actually, for real. This is actually what I enjoy doing. It's the one thing I thought, wasn't ever going to be the case, which is kind of interesting with that. And it turns out this is actually what I feel like doing every single day. And not only that, but it doesn't even feel like work, really. Even though we literally work around the clock, it feels like I'm doing a hobby instead of actually working. But it's actual work. And some people would actually not be able to take doing it 24/7 like this. But when you enjoy it, it's not really work.
Yeah, it really isn't work. It really is. It's kind of its own thing, honestly. It's just kind of like what we do. Like that's kind of how I look at it. I don't really look at it as work, and I don't really look at it as a hobby. It's basically like what we kind of are and what we kind of do is just this thing. It's really kind of interesting. And also, I see some people like, dang, you know, I thought you were in like your 30s. No, no, you've been getting your news for years now from someone who's in their very early 20s. Matthew's in his mid 20s right now. So you know, it's that's how it's been for years. You know, so if you think that we're one of the most knowledgeable voices in as far as global news goes, well, you know, it's that's honestly kind of a little bit shocking. That's honestly a little bit alarming when you think about it, folks. This is like if a lot of people think that we're really good at what we do and we're incredibly young, and a lot of people would consider that to be inexperienced. It's like, how incompetent are all the other people who are like far older who do their job way worse? Like, it's like, you know, it doesn't take a lot, and you learn so much doing this on a day to day, and as long as you retain it and remember it a little bit, it's not incredibly hard to do. Like a lot of stuff.
I think
Mhm.
I think it's more about stamina, because there's a lot of smart people out there. Not now when I say a lot of smart people, it's not like, you know, it's not like 300 million people, but there's a lot of smart people out there in their own like respective groups. But the problem is, you don't just have to be reasonably intelligent. You have to have stamina. You have to be able to keep doing it day in and day out and not get tired of it and not burn out. And that's where a lot of these smart people go wrong, is they're very intelligent, but they don't have the perseverance to go through the good times and the bad. They don't have it. So they end up burning out, and they end up like, you know, flying off and doing something else, or just like completely collapsing at the thing. That's a problem. It's good to have like a little moderate intelligence, and also a little bit of moderate stamina too. You can't just have one or the other. You're not going to make it.
Yeah, I would. That's probably true as well. But at the same time, I really, I don't even think it's stamina. Honestly, I think it's just more so perseverance. Because I can tell y'all, folks, that there has been many times that we've run the channel, where we're just doing so much and it never stops, to where I do kind of burn out, and then I just power on through burning out, and then just get to the other side, and then just get back to doing it as the thing. And that's kind of something as well. I think it's more so just persevering. And also on top of that, folks, there's a very important reason for us in practicality to persevere, is because this is our job, and if we do not continue to work at this, there isn't really a lot other things that at least myself in particular could do. I have a history degree. There's not really a lot of jobs out there that are going, yeah, you know, I would love a computer science, well, you know, someone in IT to have a history degree, you know, like there's not really a lot of people out there like that. Not that that's what's motivating me. Honestly, I just love doing it, just like Matthew does. But at the same time, when you really think about it, it's like, man, you know, if we didn't keep working at this, then there isn't really a lot of other things to do. So we kind of fell right.
I got
within our
people
niche.
knocking my door down personally. I got people knocking my door down all the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I was just contacted yesterday by some guy that said he was, I think he was working out of Australia or something like that in the outback, and he said something about like, I can't remember what it was. It was like digging holes or something like that. And I was like, I mean, I'm not an expert in, you know, construction. Like, what kind of jobs is it? And it turns out, he was actually a marmot. He was calling up and he was wanting people to dig holes. He was wanting to build houses for his friends. I was like, I'm sorry, I can't take that job. I don't know if I'm qualified for it. And also, I don't think the marmots were paying well. I think they were paying like maybe a twig a day or something like that.
Man, honestly, I thought you were legitimately going to say you had a job offer. I was going to be like, what? I was going to be like, wait a minute, you got one?
I wouldn't say that on the air, even if I had one. I wouldn't say that publicly.
But you know, folks, a couple of times we actually did get an offer to actually go represent an unnamed company at the largest arms expo in the world in Abu Dhabi. And we've gotten that offer twice. And it's something that we won't accept because, one, you have to be listed as a foreign agent because the government will mostly be a stickler. And secondly, we also would be right across the aisle from the Kalashnikov group. So, just due to the fact that I wouldn't want the Russians, and specifically the FSB, to be right across the aisle from us and then follow us back to the hotel that would be paid for by this company and then strangle us with like a shower curtain or something. That's generally why we haven't taken up the offer. But still an interesting one. It's just that I don't really know how we would fit in an arms expo, you know, to be entirely honest. So, you know, that's kind of,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was about to say, like, I personally wasn't going to go to that either. I wasn't going to go there. I don't trust foreign countries and their security services. And also, I'm like, I don't know if people are totally above board and things like that. It's like, are they getting paid off? I don't want to trust all that. I would rather just not go. But at the same time, though, truthfully speaking, I could get job offers from places, but the problem is though I'd have to move again. I would have to probably move to Washington D.C., which I'm not too wild about that to be honest. Like D.C. is nice, but you know
Very
D.C.
expensive.
The climate in D.C. changes very often. Unlike winters and summers, the climate in D.C. is very political, and I'm like I don't like the climate changes that happen so very often. I'd prefer not to deal with the climate changes like that, but. At the same time, though, that's probably where most of my other options would be DC actually.
Yeah, that's actually something where we both might end up if YouTube ever ended up kind of like panning itself out, which it probably won't. But a lot of people really love our show and what we do, so we'll be here for an incredibly long time. But that's a place that we could end up, both of us actually. But let's see. Also, I saw someone say, "Do you get death threats?" Yeah, we get them. Like hell, everyone gets them. Honestly, on YouTube, we got a lot of like. Honestly, it's kind of died down weirdly enough recently. Like the more known we've been getting, I feel like the less death threats we get. But we used to get a gazillion of them. Like it was an endless amount. Especially when the hot dog man and his little gang of goons was on us. We were getting death threats like practically every other day. We would get like random packages showing up. And you wouldn't know what was in them, or you would have fake pizza delivery men trying to get into your house, and they weren't affiliated with the pizza company they said that they were, because you'd call up the pizza company, that specific store they said they were from, be like, hey, do you send out a guy? And they'd be like, no, we didn't. And there was a whole thing going on with that. So yeah, we do get death threats. And that's something
You know,
go ahead.
It's actually a thing, by the way, that it's called pizza doxing. A politician who I can't name because she's so political, people will probably go berserk just hearing her name. But she recently left, or she's leaving Congress. She was mentioning pizza doxing. Apparently, that's something that a lot of these people do that are like, disgusting people that want to harass people. Is they do that thing where they call up pizza places and they have them go out with pizzas over and over and over like that, and they do it 24/7 to harass people. It happened to us too when hot dogs goons were screwing around with us. They did that too. So apparently that's a common thing that happens. It's another way to harass somebody.
Yeah, that's a way that we were very familiar with people who were harassing us. And then another time, they called up the law school that we were at, and they like mass callings apparently, and they started to tell them this crazy story, like that we were about to go and do some heinous stuff on the campus to people, and they were trying to get us swatted because, of course, they don't know any different. They're just getting these reports. So, luckily, folks, someone who was involved in that apparently had a conscience and tipped us off. And Matthew told me about that because they messaged him, tipped him off, and then he told me about it. And then I was like, Matthew, honestly, that's very serious stuff right there. And considering that those people could be from foreign countries, they could get away with it quite easily and possibly get us hurt. I'm gonna have to go down there to the campus tomorrow and report this to the police, so that way we don't get swatted in the middle of the day. So luckily, folks, I did that. And Matthew was like, I wouldn't do that. It's probably nothing. Luckily, I did do that because it turned out they actually were mass calling the campus at the very time I walked into the police office, and they were about to have to consider if they were going to have to send the SWAT team to our classes and pretty much have us, do the whole thing, stand up, put your hands up in the air, turn around, walk back to the sound of our voice at gunpoint in front of the whole class of people that we were with at the time. So luckily, I went and did that because we beat them to the punch, basically. And it was so bizarre, folks, because I walked in there and I was like, so there's these people, and then the police officer was like, wait a minute, they're saying that y'all are like a bunch of liars and scammers, and that y'all are like armed with weapons, and yeah. I was like, how do you know that? He was like, well, I just got done getting off the phone with like the fourth person that's called saying that. And they've been saying this for about an hour or two now, just endless phone calls. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, luckily I got here. And then what was crazy, folks, is that the law school then threatened me that if I told anyone that story about what was happening, they were going to take action against me and Matthew instead of helping us to deal with these crazy people who were harassing us while we were trying to go to their school. So a little bit interesting with that one. But anyways, Yeah, death threats are nothing new. And it also builds up a thicker skin. And it's funny, folks. It's so funny. Because there are people out there who have gotten threats and they get harassed, and it really, like, it's interesting because a lot of people never really been put into the fire like that before, so they really don't know how to handle it, and their tolerance to it is wildly low. Like that Congress member that just resigned, they practically went through the same thing we went through in terms of
Yeah.
harassment. Well, to a far larger degree.
Way worse. Way worse.
But still at the same time, similar sort of a deal going on with the death threats being flung around and the endless harassment. But some people, well, one guy that we can bring up though, Matthew, that had it to the same degree we did was that one dude. You're just the guy who does the voices, and then he got harassed and he just absolutely lost it. Like he had a breakdown
Yeah.
nearly.
Yeah, it's true.
But anyways, Matthew's getting quite quiet there. He's like, yep, that's true. So with that, we'll be moving on to the next one.
All right. So our next one here goes to Marion Deemer, who puts in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, Marion, for that $50 support right there. And that's very generous of you. And thank you for throwing it again, once again tonight. And we do appreciate it. And Marion said, hugs. And you guys are great. And we need you. And thank you for all you do.
Hey, and thank you so much for the very kind words, Marion Deemer. And we try our best to do what we do. And we thank you for doing what you're doing, which is supporting the channel so that way we can keep on doing what we're doing. Everyone does what they're doing to keep the people doing what they're doing. And I got to thank you greatly for that and supporting this channel and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you have been making this possible forever. You're an old god and a channel legend, and we thank you massively for that. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Paul Liam, and Paul puts in a $20 support, and thank you very much, Paul, as well, for helping to keep the channel running. I do not see a comment, but we do appreciate that very, very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta thank you so much for the support as well. You didn't throw in a comment, but we absolutely greatly appreciate folks who support the channel and help it to keep on running. Nobody has to, but the folks who go out of their way to do that are helping this entire world here on the Enforcer channel to keep going around day after day. So a humongous thanks to you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to John Bove, and John put in a 20. And thank you very much, John. He said, for the Coffee Filter Fund.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support to the Coffee Filter Fund. We have to have coffee filters. If we didn't have coffee filters, the world would stop turning. It truly would. And so I got to thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. And so a massive thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Arar983, who puts in a 20 as well. And thank you very much, Arar, for keeping the channel running. Also, he said, greetings from the snow in Flagstaff, Arizona. Wait a minute, how do y'all have snow like that already? We had snow today, but it's not sticking to the ground. It's like it's not outside. It's just like it's falling, but it's not sticking. But they said, saw a train engine, on the side of the road today. Looks historic. Check it out. Fort Valley Pioneer Museum, Flagstaff, Arizona, LSA.
Fort Valley Pioneer Museum. Well, what's this right here? Fort Valley Pioneer Museum. Let me type that in here. Fort Valley Pioneer Museum. Let's take a look at this. Let's take a little look at this right here. What do we got here? What do we got here? Hey, what do we got here? I'm walking here. Let's see here. Maybe they got a picture of it. Oh. Why, that is a mallet. Really neat little engine, by the way. These were made because they were trying to figure out how to get a little bit more attractive effort out of an engine. So what they said was, well, why don't we just take two of them and smack them together? And that's basically what this thing is. I don't know the specific type of steam engine. I'll be honest with you, I don't really know as much about steam engines as I do about diesel electrics, because diesel electrics are standardized and usually made in large batches. Steam engines are non-standardized for the large part and made in smaller, more artisanal batches, meaning that most of them are incredibly unique, or some of the classes are fairly niche. And I have a feeling that this is probably one of them. And it also looks narrow gauge, and I have no clue of anything hardly about narrow gauge, but pretty cool, actually, pretty neat looking. And I gotta say, the mallets are just a wildly interesting design, or the compound engines are a wildly interesting design. I I'll be honest with you. I just really don't know how in the hell these things honestly work. Looking at them, like to a degree, I kind of do, but still, it's absolutely wild the engineering that's involved to try and make one of these work. Because you have to have the steam equally distributed to all four cylinders instead of just the two that would be on a conventional locomotive. But still pretty cool, honestly. And snow in Flagstaff, that's actually crazy because we have no snow up here on the ground, at least. And we're way north of y'all. Y'all are down there in the middle of central Arizona, and we're way up here pretty much on the same longitude in Salt Lake. And we didn't have any of that today. There is a winter storm warning, though, through this whole area with Park City and stuff. So I think, Matthew, they're actually going to be getting their snow this year for the skiing.
Well,
Because,
I actually drove up toward the mountains. It's like Wasatch Road or something like that. I drove up that way, and it was like all foggy. It was sleeting and stuff like that, and it was really actually very wintry up there. So I think the mountain's really getting blasted, but nothing down here in the valley is really happening.
yeah, nothing's happening down here in the valley, but on the other side, there's a lot happening. Apparently, according to the info and updates, it stated heavy snow, total snow accumulation between 6 to 12 inches in this one day, apparently, above 5,500 feet, and 2 to 6 inches below 5,500 feet. So it's about a half foot to a foot thick above 5,500 feet. And it was basically non-existent below 5,500 feet because we're in the city and the city's at about 4,500 feet, so there was hardly anything down here, honestly. But up here, there's apparently a lot. So that's a pretty interesting deal right there. And it also says where Wasatch back. No, I'm not Wasatching back. You Wasatch back ass. But beyond that, I wonder. I honestly, man, wonder what it looks like up there right now, like around Park City and Heber and everything. I wonder.
Yeah, I don't know. I was wanting to deploy my drone, but it turns out you can't fly the drone up there. Apparently, it's like not allowed or something. So the whole like Wasatch National Forest is like an anti-drone zone. So I couldn't get any like aerials of anything. So I'm pretty much limited to on the ground. But I want to fly the drone around and like make a little like short little video or something for like Patreon and show the area like during the winter. I think that would be pretty cool.
Man,
Like not
honestly,
obviously not in the restricted area, but in the area that you can fly it.
man, you're going to fly that drone over the national forest, and then some like a forest ranger is going to come out and grab you by the shoulders. What are you doing? The water! No! Like, and they're going to start freaking out about the watershed and everything. You're screwing it up. Man, honestly, man. But still, pretty interesting stuff. Oh, and there went a guy. Oh, he said something goofy. Like I saw that. I was like, man, that is so goofy. And then Matthew smacked him. I was like, damn. I was like, there he goes. Man, the news must be slow to talk about local weather. It's like, dude, we did the news for 2 hours. It's like, get up, like get with a program, man. Also, look, man, there's a Huntsville here.
Oh, look at that. I didn't know that.
Huntsville, Utah. I wouldn't have even known. I wouldn't have even known. But you know, one place I want to go, man, is Echo. 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 It's a little itty bitty town. They got cool rocks and stuff. And they also got trains, my boy. Oh man. But they have some pretty neat looking stuff around here. Honestly, it's like stuck in the 50s almost, with how it looks. And I was like, that would be pretty cool to go see. There's some really cool stuff in Salt Lake City in general to go see. Like, you know, for example, folks, one interesting place to go see is downtown Salt Lake City. Now, this is a very interesting place to see, because if you go across this bridge right here, at this railroad station, you go from generally a pretty decent downtown to horrors beyond your comprehension. It's basically like a return to kind of like Birmingham. Not really. It's honestly a little bit kind of slightly better off, but it's kind of close to that, honestly. Let me see if I can drop y'all down there and get y'all a look at this. Let's see. And you don't really get a feel.
Oh, this looks terrible right here.
Oh, like honestly, man, dropping back down at this, I'm like, this actually isn't too bad. This is like a nice part of Birmingham, Alabama, by the way, like at least the downtown area. Oh. Well, there's one homeless person, but we don't know if they're violent or not. It seems like the homeless people around here aren't really violent. In some areas, in some regions of the country, they are quite violent, like the ones in Birmingham. But I don't know if they're incredibly violent around here or not. They don't really seem to be when I've run into them, which is starting to change my mind about being fairly leery around the homeless. Because in Alabama, you had to be really leery around them because you just didn't know what they were going to do. Out here, it seems like they might be a little bit more chill, sort of.
I've walked through downtown like before, like the multiple times I came out here to like look at the place before we moved here, and I never had a problem at all. Like the folks out here that are down on their luck, they do mind their own business and stuff like that. And it's not like what we were dealing with in Birmingham. In Birmingham, like sometimes it would be attacks and stuff like that would happen, so you got to really watch out. But here it's not a problem at all. It probably has nothing to do with the fact that I'm walking down the street, like, talking to myself or screaming and yelling and like jumping down the sidewalk and walking on all fours or anything like that. It probably has nothing to do with it.
Man, when I was on the tracks going back to the airport that one night in Salt Lake through this area, I was on the train and like people would come up beside me and I go, "Nyah, nyah. Wait, Carl, somebody's lost their hand. I'm in that commander." And then they'd hop up and they'd run off the train. Honestly, it worked. It worked very well. I survived the ride to the airport. But I think that some people may have been worse for wear, at least as far as their nerves were going, by the time I was getting off the train at the airport. But beyond that, the Delta Center. I forgot, man. The Delta has a major hub in Salt Lake. It's the international airport. Look at that. Look at that. They got monster truck arenas. They got jazz. You like jazz? They got this guy laying up hoops. They've got concerts in here. I mean, this honestly looks like a very nice place. Like, that's quite wild right there.
That's a nice venue.
Oh, and look at this. Oh, we've already looked at the convention center before. But what else is there to look at, folks? What else is there? How about what is the Relief Society? Oh, this is
They
where
have nice toilets.
is this where the Mormon Tabernacle Choir like does their deal? Is in this? I think that's in that dome over here, right here.
What's a tabernacle?
I don't really know, honestly.
Pull it up.
Pull it up, Jamie. Oh man, what is a tabernacle?
Oh, it says a dwelling place for well, I don't usually say that word there, but it's a dwelling place, most famously the portable sanctuary used by the Israelites in the Bible, but referring to the container for Eucharist in Christian churches in the Latter-day Saint tradition.
Huh, interesting. So this is where it is. It's in this building. It's actually quite a large building, and I'm guessing that the only place it could be is in this like silverish looking dome right here. It has to be because it also says, yeah, it's this building. Yeah, it's this one. So interesting.
So it's basically like the Mormon church choir. When to say Mormon tabernacle choir.
Yeah, basically that's basically what it is. And then they have this temple, which the entire even in I think we took a road trip out here, Matthew, in like 2020, and I think this building here is still being refurbished. Like it still has the scaffolding on it and everything, if I'm not mistaken. Which honestly, it's kind of like a smaller building when you see it in real life. Like it's not that big. But
They really do have a nice building, though. Like me personally, I'm not a Mormon, but I will admit their building is very nice.
It is pretty snazzy looking, I will admit. Like it does look pretty cool. Myself, not a Mormon, but pretty neat. But honestly, though, I think the neater building out of this area, let's see here. Where's it at? Oh, I'm missing it. It's up here. It's the Utah State Capitol building. We've already looked at this one before, but probably one of the best looking capitals in America for a state. It's got that style. It's got that presence about it that makes it seem like it's a true government building. I like it, me personally. I think it's really cool. But anyways, folks, enough of this stuff. We got to get some more questions. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, and jumping into our next super chat, this one goes to Old Warrior Fella, and he puts in a generous $50 support as well. And thank you very much, Old Warrior, for being a longtime channel legend, and we do appreciate you very, very much. And Old Warrior said, from listening to you over the last few years, you sound so much happier since you moved, and I'll live where life is good and enjoy it. And I've lived or worked all over the U.S. and finally found a home out west here. And happy holidays, and take one. Honestly, Old Warrior, I'll be honest with you. Like, no lie, I'm not just saying this just to, validate moving out west. Salt Lake City, and it's not a perfect place. It's got its problems for sure, but it's the only place I've ever really lived in my life that I really didn't want to run from it and go somewhere else. I actually feel like I feel planted here, even only being here for a month or so. It feels like a homey place, if it makes sense. Like I said, it's not perfect, but it doesn't feel like the other places I've ever lived before. I like this place a lot. I like the scenery. I like the area. The people are friendly. I like it overall, with a few critiques here and there. The drivers are kind of lemmings, but rather than that, though, it's a nice place. So I liked it out here in the West. The West is pretty good. But, Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say the West is a pretty solid place. Utah is really cool. I like the Salt Lake area. I like Ogden and Provo and all those places. Really cool, and it's got a really neat surrounding countryside to it. I mean, overall, who could complain? I couldn't. I couldn't complain at all. I think it's a really nice place, and I do have to say that I am way happier out here than I was in Alabama, because in Alabama it got whittled down to there was really only one thing to do. We would get in the car and we would drive down to Irondale and we just sit here and watch trains go by. And I'm into trains, but I kind of like to have a variety of things to do and stuff to see. And there wasn't really none of that in Birmingham. By the time we were kind of getting out of there, everything else had kind of been whittled down to nothing. And then on top of that, because of how we work, there isn't really enough free time to make sure to like line up things to do with like friends or anything like that. So you kind of just have to have stuff to do that's kind of quick to do and kind of nearby, and there really wasn't any of that rather than this one thing. So I got to say that I am really happy getting out of here. What's crazy is that I haven't stood by the tracks and watched a train pass by just to have something to do or kind of something to see the whole time we've been out here, because there's just been so much to do and so much to see. And also, why in the world watch the trains when you can ride one and you can take it somewhere, which is really the cool facet about them. So honestly, I've been quite happy out here, Old Worry, and I got to say a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep running. And of course, gotta say, it's a little weird that the really nice place is Salt Lake City, because honestly, a while ago, years ago, it would been like, Salt Lake City, that's not it. But Salt Lake City really is a nice place, in my personal opinion. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
Also, by the way, I see a RAR983 saying the live chat. There was a Salt Lake City Reddit post today of someone who rammed their car into a mountain upside down. I even saw worse than that. The first day it snowed out here, apparently a whole bunch of people went up the mountain toward the ski resorts, which is a very steep grade going up the mountain. And they apparently, I don't know if they didn't have snow tires or something. Something happened. Either they didn't have the proper traction stuff on their tires or something. But there was a huge crash up there. Like a whole bunch of cars smashed into one another. They slid, they hit the guardrail, and everybody on the internet was making fun of it, saying, "Oh, look, it's the treadless Corollas coming out of hibernation or something like that, going up and down the mountain." But I will admit, the one critique I have out here is the drivers are a little bit on the wild side. They drive a little bit crazy. Like, they don't really stop like completely at stop signs. Also, there's no like left turn green signal at these intersections. It's a yellow yield light, and you gotta hope and pray that you're gonna make it, because it's tough to get through all that traffic and make a left turn and with all these cars going by, and it's like a free for all or something. So that's my only critique. Believe it or not, the drivers out here are actually a little bit crazier than Alabama, believe it or not. A little bit crazier, which is kind of hard to believe. But everybody's friendly. They're not doing it to be assholes or something. I think they're just like maybe like a little distracted or something. I'm not really sure.
Man, there was so many times in Alabama, folks, where we were like in a life or death situation because someone would be a stupid driver and then they get violent. That happened so many times. It was practically a daily fact of life, and there was no way you could avoid it either. But out here, people are quite crazy drivers, and I do have to say that is one of the big reasons why you want to take the train out here because you don't have to worry about that in the train. You know, the train has the right of way. It's going to plow through someone if they're in the way. And also on top of that, it's not having to deal with traffic or crazy drivers, and you're also not the one driving. So that, and also it's cheap. I mean, it's like very cheap. So that's generally how I get around long distance. Like as far as how I do it, folks, with how I drive around the Salt Lake City area itself. Anything north or south of that, I just take the train to get there because at that point it's going to be quicker, easier, and cheaper. And then you just figure out how to get elsewhere from there. But anyways, with that, I hope.
Also, by the way, just a comment here. Why is it that why is it that I'm just going to say it. Why is it that the women out here, they want to go get the largest SUV you can find? I'm talking about like Chevrolet Suburban XL, like the biggest one. And they want to drive the thing so fast. And they have like the whole car will be full of kids. I'm like, what
like
are they
this one.
doing? Yeah, like a tank. They're going down the street like a tank. It's like, why? It's like, why did you not want a reasonably sized SUV? Why did you want this massive bus? And why do you want to drive it so crazy? It's like, what is the rush? And also, you got all your kids in the car too. It's like the whole car will be full of kids. Like I'm talking about like a Suburban. It's got like 7-seater type deal. The whole thing full of kids. And also, Old Warrior said it, Hummers. Hummer, I haven't seen a Hummer in a minute. I'm not going to lie. Soccer Mom with the Hummer, that's one I haven't seen right there. But, I mean, I'm talking about these big, big trucks right here, and they drive them fast and crazy.
Is that supposed to be a reference to something at the end right there? That sounded like it.
Oh, no, I mean, I'm just talking about real life.
Man, you were like, they drive fast and crazy. And I was like, that sounds like a reference. I don't know to what. But they pretty much drive around in these. They do. And it's particularly the women. I don't know what the women they're drawn to the SUVs, like magnets. Honestly, like the SUV is their thing. And they are quite they are quite wild with the driving, and they got a lot of kids. They got a lot of kids in these SUVs. And I mean, those kids are all like on the wild ride of Mr. Toad's Adventures or something like that. The way this car, the way these SUVs will be moving around on the interstate, like it's something else.
Man, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I mean, some of them are a little reckless, but also at the same time, there's some that are actually like legitimately whipping these SUVs, like whipping these things. I'm like, that's a heavy truck. Like that's like multiple tons, like in that vehicle, like these large like Yukons and Suburbans and stuff, and they're whipping them like they're like coupes, like sports cars. I'm like, and with the whole truck full of kids, it's like, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know where they're going, and also I don't know why they have one hand with a soda and then one hand on the wheel. But I'm like, as long as you're not, killing anybody, I guess it's okay.
I suppose. I mean, I guess it's all right. But I gotta tell y'all, there's also some really interesting stuff out here to do with Salt Lake City in the fact that I have never, ever, I'm not even kidding, folks, come up to a place yet and had to deal with someone rude at a drive-thru or at a store at all. Like, that's actually something that is so shocking, folks, because in Alabama, everyone at every job, specifically at every drive-thru, was like the rudest they could be. Like, you would pull up to the window and they would act pissed off that they have to do their job. And you would pull up and you would hear, "What you want?" And then you'd be like, "I want this." Pull around. And then you pull around and they won't even talk to you. They don't look at you. They don't talk to you. They just stick the card reader out the window. And then they practically like toss the food at you when it's done. That was at every single drive-thru. Never have run into that out here at a single restaurant yet. Ever. Or any other store for that matter. And that's a huge quality of life sort of a change, folks. Like a massive one. Like it doesn't, like some people would be like, "Oh hell, I would deal with that for low prices." Yeah, not for long. It gets old pretty quickly. But that's something out here that I'm like, wow, that's so crazy. Big difference. But a big thanks to you so much once again for support, Old Warrior. I hope that does address that well. Everything in between. And also, one last thing before we move on. We also have really cool mountains here, like Gobbler's Knob and Twin Peaks. And who in the world could not want to live in a city with mountains called Gobbler's Knob and Twin Peaks? I mean, the jokes, you literally have to just look out to the mountains and the jokes are there. It makes you smile and it makes you laugh. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Stephen Kirkland, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Stephen, as well. He said, "Thanks for the content you guys provide and definitely provokes thought."
Hey, and thank you so much for the support. And thank you for saying that it provokes thought. We try to provoke thought every once in a while. But generally, I am without thought. I am free of thoughts. But a huge thanks to you so much for the support and the kind words and helping this channel to keep rolling. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Julian and Kate, who puts in a 15. And thank you very much, Julian and Kate, for that support. They said, buy a ham and pineapple pizzas. I love you guys. LSA stronger than ever.
Ham and pineapple pizzas. Now that's a Midvale creation if I've ever heard one. But I'm just kidding. Midvale's actually pretty nice too. You know, it's just kind of not really like, it kind of depends on what part. Midvale can be pretty rough, but over here they have this place called Gardner Village, and we've actually gone to it. It's pretty neat. It's like very arts and craftsy sort of a place. And then up here they have the Ring. I don't know what this... It's the headquarters of Overstock, but there it is. Honestly, man, that looks like a building we would have built in Minecraft, honestly.
It looks like a small-scale version replica of, like, Apple's, Infinity Loop, or that little, like, office park that Apple has out in Cupertino. It looks like a smaller version of it, but a very basic version.
Yeah, it kind of does. It kind of does, actually. And what's really cool, folks, is that there's a station right outside of it, so you can ride the little train right up to this thing and then get out right at it, which is really kind of cool, actually. And then it zips through here, and then it leaves Midvale, and I think it goes into Murray up here. But Midvale is probably one of the places in Salt Lake that doesn't really meet, like, the Salt Lake standard that is in the rest of the city. It's a step below, but when I say a step below, it's not even really that bad. Like, it's just okay, but then it kind of sticks out because it's just okay in a place that's exceptionally good, or nice, really. And then let's see here. Anything else interesting to point out here? Anything else interesting to point out? And not that I can see off the top of my head. What? Korean hot pot? Oh my goodness.
That's where you actually cook your food and stuff like that, like right in front of your table. I've never really understood those.
Oh my god.
Whoa,
How
what
much
the
does this
hell?
cost?
I mean, this person ordered one of everything, it looks like.
Bro, this guy said, I'll have one of everything. And then they brought him everything. Dude, that actually does look pretty cool, though, you know, like cooking your own food. I have a feeling I'd probably undercook it and get food poisoning, but I would still try it. I mean, it looks pretty cool. What else do they have in this? King Buffet, Hawaiian Barbecue, Applebee's, the Old Spaghetti Factory. Is this like the Cheesecake Factory, but for spaghetti?
I've always wanted some of that old spaghetti.
Man, I always wanted that old dingy spaghetti. Like, I wanted that.
The vibe in here is very confused, though. It's like, what is this trying to be, like, on the interior of it? Like, I'm not opposed to it, but I'm just trying to figure out, is it like old Transylvania? Or like, is it like, I'm not really sure, like, what they're going for.
And then we have Verg's, which looks like a diner, actually. And it's diner food! Oh, dude, we gotta go here. We gotta go here. That's pretty cool, actually. It's like a real diner in here. That's pretty neat, actually. I would give this place a shot. That's pretty cool. I didn't even know there were diners in Salt Lake City, but we just found one, folks. We just found one. And then we got Zhu Ting Ji right here. Now, this is clearly a Chinese restaurant because there is a duck right there. That's a Peking duck, actually. And that's Chinese, so... Oh, they got baoji.
Bao.
Look at that, man. They got baoji, and they got the soup. Man, goodness. This, I don't know what's in this soup. That looks like the remains of an octopus.
Yeah, octopus soup.
And then they got these little, I forgot what these are called. Pot stickers, I think is what they're called. And then they got, man, this honestly kind of looks, where the hell is this strip? So this is on Interstate 215 on Redwood Road. Huh. Very interesting. They got a lot of cool restaurants there in that spot. Very, very interesting. And speaking of restaurants, we just had Chef Danny B, chef of the LSA, just throwing a super chat right now. So what do we got, Matthew?
So jumping into Chef Danny B's very generous $50 super chat. And also, it's good to see you once again, Chef Danny. And he said, good evening, Enforcers. Chef Danny here, and the beautiful people of the LSA. And oh, what a day. I thought I'd step down as head chef of the social house. Why am I still doing the chef's job? LT LSA. And Danny, you just can't pull yourself away from it. It's one of those things. Honestly, it's kind of like our YouTube channel here. It sounds like a little bit. It's just you can try to leave it, but it just pulls you back in or something. It's almost like a mafia connection, but not really. But at the same time, though, it just pulls you back in, and you have to keep doing it. It's like a compulsory thing. It's like a compulsion.
It's like mandatory, basically. Like it almost is. But a huge thanks to you so much for the support, Danny B. And also, I gotta say, a big hello on behalf of Danny B to the entirety of the LSA. And you can't stop once you start. You can't. Once you start doing something, it becomes who you are to a degree, and that's why you're doing that. I hate to hear that though, but I do thank you greatly for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and also helping to support our food fund so that way we can eat delicious foods. Folks, there was a place here in Salt Lake City that we talked about before, and I actually did try it out, folks. Bonchon. Y'all know that little South Korean like version of KFC? Well, I tried it. It came all the way from Lehigh. Look at that right there. The Bonchon meal. Now, something that they didn't tell me when I ordered this is that these wings right here, at least the ones I got, they came off of like genetically mutated chickens. Like they had wings that were so big, it was like a giant chunk of mutton. It was delicious though, by the way. Like this was some of the greatest chicken I've ever had. Really
Also,
worth it.
just as a caveat, he's exaggerating when he says genetically mutated chicken. These are not genetically mutated chicken.
Listen, man, it's not like we have to be a lawyer all the time. Like it's obviously I'm like exaggerating, but still, it was a pretty crazy sort of a thing to see the size of these wings. Like they were unreal sized, but they were great. Like they were so tender and they were really juicy. The spices were really good. Like I gotta say, Bonchon is kind of a little bit on the pricier side, but it really was worth it because if you want to eat something that actually does taste incredibly good, this was it. Like this is a 5-star restaurant in my opinion. Like I would eat here 100% again. It's just that I have to save up the money to do it. So we'll see. And also they have this Korean corn dog. I don't know what's on it, but it looks pretty interesting. So I'll try that eventually at some point too.
You ever thought about financing?
You can easily finance with 4 easy payments from Coin Level. Like, yeah, this is brought to you by Coin Level. And they also have these tacos.
Man, that's kind of wild. Could you imagine like saying like I'm still paying off my KFC chicken box from last week. I'm still paying off the third payment.
Also, man, what financial institution would be like, oh yeah, we're definitely fine giving out a small loan for someone to buy KFC?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's plenty of micro lenders all over the place. I mean, that's a huge trend now is micro lending.
I don't know. I feel like I would develop a microaggression if I had to micro lend for my micro food. I don't really like that idea.
I think you have to have a micro brain to finance something like a chicken box.
Man, I gotta tell y'all, folks, was it worth it pulling out a small mortgage for a $5 fill-up? No. But was the $5 fill-up good? Yes. Anyways, with that, folks, it is time for us to move on into something else a little bit more interesting, like the Linden Marina, where you can take a boat out onto the Utah Lake, which you can't swim in, by the way, but you can float over it, and it does look quite serene. Fish. Wow, there's fish living in that river. That lake, I mean. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Robert Krogan, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Robert, for that support. He said, "Good evening, LSA and enforcers. Chicken is on me tonight."
Hey, and thank you for supporting our chicken diet. Chicken is good. Chicken is life. And I thank you massively for helping us to keep that thing rolling and keep eating. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to have that delicious chicken. And so a huge thanks to you once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Slim Jim, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Slim Jim, as well. He said, "DoorDash a Starbucks on me." And Matthew tisk tisk tisk.
He didn't steal the filters. He didn't steal them, I can promise you. But I do thank you massively for the support. And maybe I will DoorDash something after the show. Honestly, I'm actually quite hungry because I got some food today. And honestly, the food just wasn't my type. It was a pico de gallo burrito. And it was like mostly lettuce and tomato. and it had like no real flavor, and I was like, it had like no meat in it or anything. It's kind of like tasted like filler, honestly. And I was like, it's all right. So I'm kind of working on no caffeine and no food right now. That's also why the conversation keeps moving back to food, because I'm also a little hungry. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well, at least the best we can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Cryo Sog, and thank you very much, Cryo Sog, for that $20 support right there. We do appreciate that. He said, "Ditch the grinder drip combo, go grinder and percolator, and keep going, my dudes." Now, Cryo, I actually did a lot of research into that. The one thing that I really wanted was something that was convenient. So I've sacrificed, the inconvenience of having to buy these filters, these specialty filters, to have it convenient, because I like to have it really quick. The grinder and percolator, I'm not sure really how long that takes in reality, but it takes longer than the other machine that we got. So I like the idea of a percolator, but I also don't need that much coffee either. Like, it's too much coffee for me. I only drink 1 cup in the evening and maybe 1 in the morning sometimes. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say the same thing. The percolator does make the greatest coffee, from what I've heard, and from what I've had back in the day. I remember the taste of a percolator coffee. But sadly, we have to kind of make it a little convenient because we don't have a lot of time for the maintenance and cleaning and stuff of a percolator. But hey, big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep rolling. I hope that does address that quite well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a $10 support from Stanley So Manly, and he said LSA coffee filter investment.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support of the coffee filter investment. We will have to make an investment in coffee filters, and we'll have to keep them in the open so that way they never go missing. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Rangers Rule, who puts in a 10. He also said coffee filters, or she actually. I think I can't remember. Rangers Rule. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's she. But the coffee filters.
Well, I thank you so much for the coffee filters and the support and helping this channel to keep rolling. And we're on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Mark Dixon, who puts in a 10. And Mark said, "I'm thinking it's only a matter of time before something happens as Russia loses its revenue. What say you?"
I would agree. I think it is only going to be a matter of time. We don't know what exactly it's going to be, but it definitely is going to be something interesting, to say the least, about it. But a big thanks to you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, folks, we're on, as you all know it, to the next one.
And the next one goes to Sue Mack, Cud, who put in a 10. They said, "Matthew, where'd you hide the filters?" Oh, man. Come on, man. I hid them at your mother's house. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm not trying to be mean. That was a joke. That came across bad, though. That was bad. But thank you very much, Sumac. And also, please take it lightheartedly. That was an innocent joke, but it sounded like it wasn't innocent. But I promise you, it was innocent. I wouldn't get defensive over, stealing coffee filters or something like that. I certainly wouldn't. But thank you very much, Sumac, for that 10, and we do appreciate it. And we also have a 10 from John Bernard. And John said, you should use some coffee filters made of snow.
And I should use coffee filters made of snow, and of course eat the birds, which will be eaten on Tuesday. But here in America, they have expensive chicken computers that figure out how many chickens are needed per person. They then take the chickens and drop them into a grinder and turn them into chicken nugget paste. They then use the chicken nugget paste to turn into food, which they then feed to their children. But beyond that, I gotta thank you massively for supporting our Snow Coffee Filter Fund, because here in the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, we do not have normal coffee filters. We only have coffee filters made of snow. But a huge thanks to you so much for the support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Levi, who puts in a 10. And thank you, Levi, as well, for that support. And he said for the Chapstick Fund.
Hey, and thank you for the support. Matthew needs that as much as I do. I thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep it running, because lips do get chapped out here in this dry air. It's actually happening to me, but I think it's more so happening to Matthew right now than it is to me. But I do thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep on rolling. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Show Intel, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Show Intel, for that support. They said not for coffee filters. LMAO.
Man, you see what he did there? Man, I was like, I'm gonna start laughing like that guy on The Sopranos. What was his name again? Paulie?
His name was Polly. How much more betrayal can I take, Johnny? How much more? Wait a minute, not Johnny. What's his
Tony.
name? What's Tony?
How much more betrayal can I take, Johnny?
How much more betrayal can I take, Tony? I can't take any more.
Man,
Have you ever been checked for Tourette's? You know that little.
no, I know. It's just a thing of mine. And then you sitting there. You told him about that joke about Johnny Sack's wife, didn't you? Man, he was on the boat, and he had like the hatchet and everything near him. Man, honestly, man, that was a great episode.
I think he was actually about to cut him up with that fillet knife.
Yeah, he actually was, actually. But man, you know what was even a better episode though was the one where Tony got on the phone with Paulie and he was like, "Okay, listen, I got to get this to you quickly. The guy is with the Interior Ministry. He killed 16 Chechens single-handedly. You got to take care of this guy. He cannot come back to have this story. Can you hear me? Okay, Tone. He said that he is interior decorator. He killed 16 Czechoslovakians. His house looked like shit." Man, honestly, that was like the greatest exchange out of the whole show. Man, that was.
I've never really watched that show, to be honest. I never really watched the whole thing. Like, I just watched like snippets of it. Like, they come across those short videos or something like that. I'll occasionally see something from that show. It's really popular on the shorts.
Listen. Matthew never had the makings, folks, of a varsity athlete. That's a good
I really
joke.
didn't.
Man, honestly, I certainly did not, man. Hell no. But
I was just joking. I could have been a varsity athlete, but I didn't want to.
Oh, okay, man. Dude, he played into the joke for a second and then pulled a power play. You're like, honestly, I could have been, but I didn't. I was like, oh, okay. But
yeah, I turned it down.
Man, they can't. Matthew was so good at it, folks, that the NFL actually didn't even approach him. He approached the NFL and told them that they could bring him on, and they were like, "Please, please," and then he turned them down because they're below him. He's just on another level. But beyond that, man, let's see. I've watched a little bit of the Sopranos show. Like, I watched like the first season and a half. And it is a pretty interesting show, but it's honestly more so of a family drama than anything, really.
Yeah, it seems like it, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. But you got to understand that he did 20 years in the can. Like, man, you get like that one character that would always say, "I was in the can for 20 years." I think it was like Borko or something like that. But anyways, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a 5 from Esteban Graves, who did not leave a comment, but thank you very much, Esteban, for that $5 support, and we do appreciate that. We also had a 5 from Kachulian, who said, "Guys, be honest, what do you think the chances are that Putin knows he's screwed, and he's just trying to cause as much suffering as possible before the big red button?"
It's possible. I wouldn't say that's the highest likelihood. I think he's trying to find a way to manage to win somehow, but there's a possibility that could also be the case as well. So a big thanks to you so much for the support. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Kachulian once again, who puts in a 5, who said, "At his core, I think Putin is a sadist, and I could see him having the same mentality as the painter, where he burns everything down, downfall style." Honestly, Kachulian, I think he's got some serious issues. I mean, obviously, it doesn't take a genius to see that. He's obviously probably a sadist. He's got some very, very, very bad personality traits that rarely come around quite like that. It came around in The Painter, and we see how that ended up. That guy was clearly a demonic individual, but Putin seems to be the newest version of him in modern day. And I think it's like a whole series of circumstances and the guy's environment. Putin grew up in a terrible environment, by the way. He grew up very, very rough. Did not have it very good, and I think he even got punked and bullied a lot, at least according to the story. So not a good upbringing for him. So I think he's got a lot of baggage, but that doesn't excuse war crimes, hurting innocent people, or anything like that. That doesn't excuse it, but certainly not from a good background either. But Enforcer, what say you?
Man, honestly, that doesn't sound like it was a good background at him for all. I'll be honest with you. That doesn't sound like a good background for anybody, but that always produces some character building, as they call it in some circles, but apparently not good ones with him. But beyond that, I got to say that Putin is a little nuts. Well, not a little; he's actually quite nuts. And also the fact that he continues to talk about this rinky-dink the wise story shows that he has some sort of odd obsession with trying to emulate rinky dink for some reason. So with that, honestly, folks, I think that's one of the greatest dishonors that we can ever give to the Russians on this show, is pretty much amalgamating their whole national history according to Putin, from Yaroslav the Wise to rinky dink. Like, honestly, man, like we turned their whole history into a joke by saying that. But honestly, it's kind of deserved, because look at them. But anyways, with that, a big thanks to you.
But the plot twist will be, how like in every like psycho movie where it's like a psycho and there's like a whole like horror movie and everything like that. The plot twist is at the very end of the story, of the Vladimir Putin story, he finally admits that Rinky Dink the Wise was always him. He was referring to himself when he was talking about Rinky Dink the Wise. When he would retell stories about, I remember when Rinky Dink the Wise, he was actually speaking of himself in the third person.
Man, you see, back in 986 AD, Rinky Dink, what he's actually talking about is on the streets of St. Petersburg, he got his teeth knocked out, like, or something like that. And he's like, just like hiding the trauma by making up this Rinky Dink the Wise guy and talking about him. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Not a Monkey, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much for the support. They said, as Not a Monkey, I would like to ask if you think the supplies will be affected by all this. Again, not a money.
Not a money?
I think he meant to say monkey, but he said money.
Oh, I don't think you're a monkey. I think you're probably a person. I mean, we've never had a monkey watch the show before. But I do thank you so much for the support. And I'd have to say that, can you reread the question again really quickly, Matthew? Because the last part caught me off guard and I completely forgot the question.
They said, do you think the supplies will be affected by this as a monkey?
As a monkey, I don't think they'll be affected, but as a non-monkey, I think we might be affected. So a big thanks to you so much for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Jack Ray, who puts in a 5. He said, Kadyrov, the climate activist, will he end up on a flotilla somewhere later?
Oh, buddy, he might. He might. I wonder if he would, I wonder if he would. But I got to say, a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. It's always possible, it's always possible. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Robert Krogan, who puts in a 5. And Robert said, just a little something for you.
Hey, and I thank you for the support. A little something to help us to get by here. These winters are long and cold, folks. Long and cold. But, we can always be greatly appreciative of a couple of extra dollars to throw into the fire to keep it warm. I'm just kidding, folks. But a big thanks to you so much once again for support, because it is folks like you who help us to stay alive, keep the bills paid, and keep this show on air. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Jack Ray yet again. He puts in another 5. He said, a big chicken dinner for Matt, but not filters. And I appreciate that, Jack. Thank you very much for the chicken dinner right there. But no filters. I don't want to filter my chicken. That is no filters of chicken. But Enforcer, what say you?
And that's why, folks, we have no filter on the show. Anyways, as I was saying about the Middle East, but anyways, I'm just playing, folks. I'm just kidding. But a huge thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope we were able to address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And a big shout out to Plazoth for putting in a $3 support. And thank you very much, as always, Plazoth, for that support. And we also had a 2 from Jurassic Cringe, who said, I'm a big fan. Good work, bro.
Hey, and thank you so much for being a big fan and enjoying our work. And thank you for supporting it. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we have a 2 from RLA, who said, thanks for the update.
Thank you so much for enjoying the update and supporting this channel, so that way we can keep it rolling. A huge thanks to you for that. Greatly, massively, as a matter of fact. So a big thanks to you once again. And we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to the Bearded Tuckfardo, who puts in a 2. He said, Matt, give back the filters. LMAO, just kidding. And I actually did not take the filters, folks. I did not take the filters. I don't even go over to Enforcer's HQ and just by myself. I'm always accompanied by somebody there at the Enforcer HQ, the original or the new one, whatever you want to call it. So I didn't even have the chance to even take filters, even if I wanted to. And also, what would that be saying about me if I went all the way down the way to the Enforcer HQ just to take some them 1 cent filters. What would that really be saying? That would be saying something.
Man, that's deep. I think they're 10-cent filters, by the way.
I would be paying more in gas to go get the filters than the filters even cost. That's a bad business model.
It honestly would be a bad business model. That wouldn't be economical at all. That'd be like your car engine exploding and then having to pay practically the value of the car to get it repaired. Not that that's like a particular story that matters or anything like that, but it might be something that matters. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. A big thanks to you for the support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Justified, who puts in a 2, who said, the Russians took your coffee filters.
They did? Oh, hell no. That's not going to stand. We're going to have to put a 1,000% tariff on China. But a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. I hope that this addressed that well. And we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Not a Monkey once again, who puts in a 2. He said, where is the Enforcer Minecraft server? We need it. I hadn't played Minecraft in a minute. I'll be honest with you. I hadn't played Minecraft in a long time. I think it's been almost a year at this point or something like that, I think. But believe it or not, there is a Minecraft server out there that I've never shut down that is out there. And it has a couple of buildings on there that Andrew put on it. And also I put on there as well. I actually built like a really high-end neighborhood on there a long time ago. And it's just out there. I can't remember the name of the address for it or anything like that, but it's somewhere out there. But Enforcer, what say you?
We have an entire replica on that server, by the way, of the Washington, D.C. Union Station in 1-to-1 scale that's on that map. And Matthew can actually tell you all that was a very impressive build. Like, it's actually really cool. I don't know where the hell that server is anymore, and I don't even really know how to get on Minecraft anymore, to be honest with y'all. I don't even think it's on this computer. But beyond that, though, I would like to maybe do that one day. But the thing is, folks, is that it takes a lot to manage stuff like that on the side, so we'd have to have like a moderation team and everything like that, and then that takes management. But we could see about it one day, but it's a possibility. It's not out of the question. It's just that it might be around the corner a good ways. But a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also had a $2 support from Levi once again. And thank you very much, Levi, for that support. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And it is now time, folks, to jump into our live chat questions proper. And tonight, we're actually on schedule, believe it or not, which thankfully we are. I mean, the last few streams have been almost 4 hours long. But our live chats tonight, including our Morse code decoders, we had Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Mason Miami, Joni Dog, Norm Pritchett, Airbug Garbo, Her Royal Fluffiness, Coach Kobe Turk Siren, Brian Blairstown. And they said, the Morse code says, France is letting everyone know that these hands are rated for every Russian, LTLSA.
And oh, and that's the sound of money. I got that. That's the Moscow message of the night. Oh, and y'all got to say a huge congrats to the Lee Spring on Single Core. Y'all have been keeping this thing real and keeping the messages rolling. And I got to say, what an absolutely incredible and amazing thing to know that so many people have continued to get that Morse code message correct time and time again. So with that, a huge congrats to y'all. And with that, folks, it's time for us to move on into the live chats. Can y'all believe it? We're not overtime right now. We can actually get to some. And I got to say, Matthew, please take it away.
All right. So this one here goes to Michael West, who said, do you have an opinion on the U.S. government telling the UK to hold off on giving Ukraine the $8 million in Russian assets?
I do. I think that's really stupid because they stated don't do it because giving that to them will only prolong the war. And it's basically, this is the stupid thing, folks. If that's the logic of it, is that giving them the weapons will prolong the war, then that means that the U.S. is telling everyone to stop giving Ukraine weapons because they want them to lose, because the war will last a shorter amount of time if they lose. That's basically what we said. So at this point, we've gone completely from even pretending like we support Ukraine in the current administration to now we're openly saying that we want the Ukrainians to lose, so stop giving them weapons so that way they will lose. Or so that way we can force them into such a bad position they are practically forced to accept whatever demands we are forcing them to accept from the Russians. Basically, it's stupid. It's absolutely stupid. It's un-American at the end of the day to put ourselves in that bad of a disadvantage and all of our allies. And then at the same time, in the national defense strategy, we sit there and say, the Europeans are so important to us, but we're still going to F them all over. It's the stupidest thing imaginable. I could have never imagined living in a time where this kind of stupidity prevailed. And then when you point it out, you have some stupid fool that's about to come in the chat, and they're going to say TDS or something like that in their chat because we're saying that something that clearly makes no sense, regardless of the political affiliation of whatever's involved in this. It's just a stupid premise and an idea. And then someone's going to come in here and act like that's outrageous to say because they are in a cult and they worship these politicians who lie out their teeth like they're actually honest people or better than thou, which is just ridiculous to me. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. Don't mean to go on a little rant there, but that's just my 2 cents on it. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a question from Polizei Paul, who said, Turkey and Hungary are the 2 NATO moles, if you ask me. They're leaders anyway. What is the process to kick out countries from NATO, and can that be done?
There is no way to kick a NATO member out of NATO. The only way that they can leave is if they leave on their own. So I hope that does address that the best I can, and we are on to the next one.
And we also have a question from Annie, who said, Enforcers, do you think the drones flying over military bases are automated, like how the drones heading toward Ireland and hitting Zelensky's plane was, or do you think that they're operator-controlled?
I think they're all operator-controlled. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say I think personally they're operator-controlled. I don't think they're automated like that because I'm not even sure if they have fully automated drones that go completely without operator input at all. I'm not even sure if they have that.
Yeah, I don't think they do have that. So they're all operator controlled from what we would know. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to JNN, who said, why doesn't Ukraine use flat grenades like they used on B-2 bombers to shoot down the drones?
Generally because they would have to pretty much start an assembly line to get munitions for those, and that would be pretty expensive. So I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to, let's see here. This one goes to Mr. Sir, who said, how many Russian ships do you think there are, spy ships, around the waters of Europe?
Probably only a handful, maybe 4 of them at the best. They don't have a lot of these spy ships that are purpose-built for this reason or this sort of an operation. They're very limited in number, so the largest they could probably ever have around Europe is probably 4, but in reality, at the moment, there's probably only 2 or maybe 1 of them in Europe right now at the moment. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Quentin, who said, is a Wagner group involved in Sudan that you know of?
Not that we know of. They've pretty much been completely erased from everything, even operations in Africa at this point. So the Wagner wouldn't be there. It would be some other form of the Russian special forces. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. We're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Revolution, who said, do you believe that Russia basically runs off of alcohol? And without it, there will not be a thing called Russia, since alcohol causes them not to lash out in anger at Putin's regime.
Yeah, actually, I do. It's backed up historically. It is a nation that has a culture of alcoholism enforced generally by every government that's existed since the 1600s onwards to try and ensure that the peasantry never rose up against the government. So I would say yes, it is pretty much a society that is only existent through alcoholism and heavy usage of alcohol. And if it ceases to exist, their entire societal fabric starts to unwind on the spot. So I hope that does address that the best that I can. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Michael West, who said, hi there. And to both of you, do you think with what France have done shooting drones, do you think that we will see, or Russia will see it as an escalation?
If they did, it's going to be on them. I would say honestly no, because none of them have been shot down yet for us to confirm them to be Russian, for them to be forced into responding to the incident. So generally for now, no, but if one of them does get shot down and we confirm it's Russian, then that might be an incident where they say they are clearly attacking our stuff, and then we'll have to cross that bridge when we get there. But I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And this one here is actually our last question of the night, actually, right here.
Oh my goodness. And so with that, folks, we are on to the last final question of the night. And so who was the last person who put in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is AF Kaplan, who said, do you think the UK will follow through on releasing frozen Russian assets to Ukraine?
I would hope so. Considering that there's U.S. pressure involved, they might not. But I would hope that they would just continue to press forward and then release the funds to not the funds, but use the funds to buy the weaponry to then give to the Ukrainians so they can keep fighting the war. So I hope that does address that the best I can. And we actually have one last super chat to get. So what do we got, Matthew?
And this one goes to Taoist Auditor, who put in a 5 Australian and said, so the strategy is to dump the system in place that made the USA the strongest country in the world, organized by USA for reasons.
And what does that mean, Matthew? What are they trying to get at there?
I think he's referring to NATO, but he's basically saying the U.S. dumping NATO is basically what made the U.S. strong in the first place. So what's up with that?
Oh, okay. I don't know what's up with it. It absolutely makes no sense. But that's what they kind of are sort of leaning towards at this point, and that would be a disastrous idea if we tried to go through with it. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and we've reached the end of tonight's stream. And I got to say a massive thanks and a huge appreciation to everyone who's been here tonight. We had a large amount of people here over the course of this night, and I got to thank each and every single one of y'all massively for enjoying the stream and once again considering this channel to be your primary source of news. If you have enjoyed, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you all tomorrow, either in the short war video, which will be made by me, the Enforcer, if there is one to be made, or we'll see you at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news from around the world at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, Haram Slava, long live the Lee Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, we will see you all tomorrow on the stream at 10 p.m. Eastern and the midday short war video if there is enough news to cover. And be sure to join us for that. And of course, thank you all for watching once again. And we appreciate every single person for choosing us as your source of news. But with that, Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava, get some rest, and good night.